Edie Faulkner at her best. Cool. Very nice. 17 though.
I'd like to call the Blackstone Millville Regional School Committee meeting to order on January 14th, 2016. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start off with introduction to members.
Tara Larkin, Millville.
Steve Tringali, Millville.
Georgette Jarrett, Blackstone.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone. And we are going to enter into executive session, the issues pertaining to non-union negotiations. So I need a roll call to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, Georgette, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Return. Second.
And we will be returning at 7 o'clock.
Beautiful.
Oh, really?
Okay, we are back, and Jane?
Okay, once again, I would like to motion that the Blackstone Millville Regional School District engage the legal services of Long DiPietro for use by the school committee and administration as needed.
A motion made by Jane, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Bill, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. One. Recognition of retirees.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Greenstein. We are very fortunate to be able to have 4 of our recent retirees here with us. And as folks know who have been here far longer than I, when our professional staff and our teachers retire, they get to choose a book that is dedicated to their work and put in the school library of their choice. And I'm happy to say that we have done that. And I just wanted to recognize Cassie Foley, who has retired after a lot of years teaching elementary art. Margaret Lane, who came to us late in her career but provided incredible work at the high school in nutrition and consumer sciences. And Ann Raschuti and Sharon Goldstein, who have recently retired and are already missed. So from Millville in our elementary and our special ed. And they have some family here as well. But I wanted to collectively say thank you to you for all of your work. It is a long, and for those of us that are still in it, it has changed rapidly. You have seen tremendous changes, but each and every day you provided such consistent professionalism and always had our students' best interests at heart. And you are all being missed, but we wish you nothing but the best in your retirement. It's often said that no one retires as well as teachers. And we hope that if you do get the urge, that if we call you to substitute on a couple of days, you wouldn't mind doing that because you already know where everything is. But on behalf of the administration, can't thank you enough for all of your work. And we wish you nothing but lots of health and happiness in your retirement. And I think Monique brought a little something for you from us. And so if I could have Margaret and Cassie and Ann and Sharon come up, just stand here.
They have all kinds of little technical things about cleaning regulations and stuff like that that they have to adhere to. I know.
Saying that, covering your mouth, it's
Yeah.
just going a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I've heard that story enough times to repeat it.
On behalf
I might get surprised and it might
of the Blackstone
be right here.
and the books are ordered and are on the way to the library of your choice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
I just have one quick question. Could we share the books that you chose to put in our library?
I have it.
If you could, or why you chose those books?
I chose the book Wonder. It's an excellent book. Having taught mostly in the 4th and 5th grade over the past 2 years, I felt that it was a book that offered kindness, encouraged children. One of my beliefs as a teacher was always, you can do it, and I believe in you. And I felt that that book really touched on that theme that I tried to carry over in my class from year to year. So thought that was a perfect fit.
It's an excellent
for that
book.
school.
A good, great choice.
I chose Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. I just like the idea that, you know, life is not always going to be all roses and you're not always going to be at the top. And no matter where you are, whether you're waiting or whatever it is, you have to, you know, keep going, and that's how life is. So I think it's a great message to give to kids, no matter what their age.
Great, excellent. Thank you.
And I chose Officer Buckle and Gloria.
I know that.
Gloria is a dog. And Gloria goes with Officer Buckle to the schools to give safety speeches. And it is a fun book. And the kids pick up safety tips too. But it's fun.
Great, thank you.
And I chose The Boys in the Bowl, story of the 1936 Olympic rowing team. I don't know if anyone has read that.
Yeah.
But I looked for a
That is a
nutrition
good
book
book.
or wellness, but so much is online. And I love that book, and I hope that some of the students will get a chance to read it.
Yeah,
It's a
great,
wonderful story. I don't know if everyone here has read it, but pick it up.
great. Excellent, excellent choices. We appreciate your service. Does anybody have any other questions or
And I'd like
comments?
to just thank, there's no thank yous that are enough for the dedication that you put in. The community owes you, you know, so I just wish you a wonderful retirement. Relax, enjoy, laugh, live. And if we call you the sub, you know, that's great too. But, you know, do your thing now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public forum next. Anybody? Public
There
forum?
goes the public.
Okay, there they go. Report of the student representatives.
Okay, so it's that time of year again. We're cracking down for midterm exams, which will be in fairly soon. Classes are reviewing for that, and that's taking up most of the time. But for seniors, it's exciting because hopefully we'll be exempt from most of our finals. So these are really our last big roadblock before we just have the rest of the year to go. And on the same education note, the Mass Insight Education Grant has provided even more for our students lately. In addition to the Saturday sessions for going to review, our calculus class was actually able to have a speaker come today and kind of talk to us and tell us about the exam. And that was a really fun and also beneficial experience for the students. And those Saturday sessions will repeat. We'll have those opportunities to come in again and learn, work on the AP curriculum with other teachers in our cohort. But even more so, we're actually going to do practice exams. A full AP practice exam is provided. Students will be able to take, which is a huge benefit to kind of have a first run at it and learn from it. And then the National Honor Society has been busy lately. With midterms coming up, there's been a lot of tutoring going on, which is actually the students themselves who do it. They work hard, giving up their studies after school time, or even later going to people's houses and just helping tutor people in the entire school district, which is a really nice way to give back and offer what you have academically. One of the biggest events for the National Honor Society is the Empty Bowl Dinner, which is actually when the NHS students make bowls, which are raffled off, but people who go and buy tickets can get 2 bowls full of soup. And the jazz band plays, and it's just a really nice night where proceeds go toward the food pantry and raffle goes toward National Honor Society. So it really benefits these 2 organizations giving back to our community. And it's a really fun night. And that'll be February
11th, right?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no problem. And student council pep rally, the biggest event of the year, that was accomplished and it was very successful. All students had a great time. It was one of the best I've been to. Ton of spirit, ton of competition, of course, always friendly, but hugely decorated. The banners were fantastic and just everyone left for holiday break just feeling great.
And the winning class was?
The winning class was the seniors. I hope you didn't expect anyone else. We really brought it this year.
And the seniors voted on the winning class?
No, the teachers, they know. We brought some nice hip-hop game to the pep rally, theme being music. The other big coming event for the student council is actually the state conference, which is usually the first week of March, Wednesday through Friday. The delegates have been chosen to go, 12 students, and they'll be going down to Hyannis, Cape Cod, where they'll do leadership conferences, working together with people from councils all over the state, just kind of an exchange of ideas, a forum where you can see what other people are doing, use it to improve what you are. It's also a really fun time with 3 great motivational speakers always coming and the election of the new state officers. To prepare for that, the student council has to make what is known as the Excellence Book, which is just a binder which is full of requirements for the student council and just kind of check marks to hit of things you've done this year, involving ways you gave back to the community, fundraisers you did, how you reviewed yourself, organization, letters of endorsement from the president and principal. And it takes a lot of work, so our student council officers have been very busy the last 2 weeks really getting that together and assembling it. But hopefully we'll get the gold, which is the highest award for your excellence book, and we're really looking forward to that.
All right, so just 2 things before I get into my little spiel here. Happy New Year to everybody, and I hope the holidays went well. On a second note, let me know if you need empty bowl tickets, 'cause I have 4 still, and they're $7 a piece. All right, so moving on into sports. The boys basketball team has been off to a slow start, but we've seen a pretty good increase in the size of the crowds. And the girls team has been doing great, actually. They're 5-4 right now. I believe they're either tied for first or in first in the DVC right now. I'm pretty sure they're undefeated in the DVC. And getting back to the crowds, we're actually starting a fan section, which we're going to call the Stampede. This is in the developmental stages right now. We had our first meeting today. If you look around to other schools like Hopedale, Franklin, they usually have a very large fan section for basketball games, but they also do hockey games and things like that. And it's actually kind of an MIAA-sponsored idea, because they have a kind of battle of the fan sections where you submit a video and they get voted in that way. And at the big MIAA leadership conference, it was a few months ago, we sent 4 students. They kind of reveal who won and they get awards. So we're trying to do a fan section for that this year, so next year we could possibly enter. Also, track has been doing very well. They're undefeated, 8-0 right now. The DVC meet is tomorrow in Northbridge at 3:30. And then Griffin for band.
Band actually has a wonderful opportunity coming up. Following our winning of the national championship, we've actually received an invite to go to the State House. And this will be during school upcoming Tuesday. And this will be really fun because not only will students get to do a tour of the State House, kind of see around, but they'll be recognized for their accomplishment and the glory and pride they brought back to the state of Massachusetts. So students are really excited about that. It's a wonderful opportunity, and we thank all those who organized it. It's that time of year where the band organizations are really in the practice stage, so the shows won't be coming up till February-ish for both the jazz band, the winter percussion, and the winter guard, but students have been hard at work practicing all through the weeks, and we have some really good shows we're going to be putting on the floor for you, so it's a lot to look forward to. Speaking of practice, the jazz band actually has been thankful enough to get the help of Paul Alberta and 2 of his assistants, who are really good jazz instructors who actually come from King Philip is where they instruct, I believe. But they're going to help us out 3 times this this jazz band season, and just kind of show us what to do, give a professional input, and that really helped last year, so we're fortunate to have that opportunity again.
So the senior class has kicked it into high gear with the new year. A little bit stressful. We're planning our senior class trip right now. We still have a few options on the table that we're going to put out to the class to vote on. Looking beyond that, and that's actually into April, is our prom. We already have decided on the place. We decided last year. I think we've mentioned it, Pleasant Valley in Sutton, the country club. It's very beautiful, and the inside is, they're actually renovating it right now, so it'll be all brand new for when we get there. And then obviously graduation is right around the corner, getting there faster than I expected. And then as far as fundraisers for the future, we actually just started our Matchmaker fundraiser, which a lot of schools do. Students fill out the questionnaire, and then when we get all the results back, they can pay $1 and see the results, who they'd best be matched with, who their best friends would be. It's kind of a fun way to raise some money for the class. And then in March, we have Mr. BMR. I'm not sure on the exact date. We just did sign-ups for that. That is always a riot to go to. So next time we're here, I'm sure we'll have the date set for that.
Lastly, we have a couple renovations in our school that are coming through, which are really exciting. The cut through from a lower C wing to the cafeteria is actually getting these like plexiglass wall installments, so students will be able to go straight from lower C to the cafeteria, which is really nice for students because normally in like a 10-foot span they couldn't go outside, so they had to go backwards up the stairs, over upper C, down and straight to the cafeteria. So this will save a lot of time for students hurrying to get to lunch, which will be really nice. And also the rock from Principal's Council, which we mentioned last year, a big project was done to cut the trees away. So from the top of the hill, you could see all the way across the soccer field and all the way down to the practice football field and the softball, so you can watch games from there. Not only have those trees been cleared, there was actually a controlled fire to remove all the brush. So with a little grass growth, we're going to have just the nice rock in the middle of the field, and it's going to look fantastic.
And also one more thing, I know before the colder weather set in, they've been drilling in that back field to try and find a well for irrigation. And I'm almost positive that they did find a water source, so I think things might be happening with that in the future. Not 100% sure, but so I've heard. And that is it for tonight.
So how many more days?
Oh, I actually don't know. I know.
I've given up on you, Eric.
May 20th is the last day.
Yeah. Just got my eyes set on that date.
Be prepared at the next meeting, that's the question.
I will. I'm gonna write it down.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda A.
Did you?
We have warrants, use of facilities, field request. I believe there's 2 field requests. One to Faneuil Hall, and the other one is to the annual Student Council Spring Conference in Hyannis. We also have minutes for the meeting of December 10th.
Move to approve the 2 field trips.
Approve the field trips from John, seconded by Erin.
Do you want to pull this apart?
Discussion?
Is it saying
You wanna do
we
the
want to do
whole-
them
Wanna do the
separately,
whole
or you want
thing?
to do the
Whole warrant?
So do you have an issue with any of them?
the whole consent
No.
agenda, or you want to do them separate?
Do the whole thing?
Do the whole thing. Move consent
Motion is
agenda.
made, so we need to amend the emotion,
Mhm.
no?
Yeah, you do.
What was the motion?
We do, right?
You do. You just have to amend it.
Okay, so.
Or accept
make an
somebody's amendment.
To the motion, to John's motion, and a motion has been made to approve consent agenda A
In its entirety.
in its entirety. The motion was made by John, seconded by Erin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Greenstein. You have in your packet the Bi-County Collaborative Quarterly Report. We have, we welcome BICO to the high school as well, and they give us rental. One thing we do have in all of our schools is space, and we are developing a very strong relationship with the BICO Collaborative, and they look to maybe expand and to some other locations as well. But this is just a brief update. As part of the new collaborative bylaws, they furnish the quarterly information. So there is a lot going on at BICO. We're one of, I think, 16 member towns that make up this collaborative, so it is there for your information. There also is an update on the cable. I know that it predates Dr. Thompson and I, but we had cable at the high school, and we haven't had cable there for a while. We have reached out to the Blackstone Cable Company and the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, and there was some funds that were available, and they asked us to furnish how the funds could be used to enhance our curriculum. And thanks to Mr. Juba and Mr. Gaudet, they furnished a curriculum to put in our own television studio at the high school, and to purchase the necessary equipment. And at the Tuesday Board of Selectmen's meeting, they voted unanimously to transfer cable funds in the amount of $60,000 so that we can move forward with television studio, cameras, the necessary software and hardware, which will give our students a tremendous opportunity to learn the business of TV production, to recording, to the camera work, as well as reporting. And it's a terrific opportunity for our students. And I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Keys, the town administrator, and to all of the Board of Selectmen for their consideration and a most generous offer. I think it is the best of when boards and community can come together for the benefit of our students. And so that is the cable update, and we expect that that work will begin over the summer, and hopefully have it ready to go as part of the curriculum for the fall.
Question.
Sure.
Where do you want to put that?
That's, I think, up to Mr. Dudek and Mr. Ducharme and Mr. Gaudet. There was some talk about first going back downstairs, but there may be some opportunity upstairs in Mr. Gaudet's room, which is very large to begin with. So they're still working as to what might be the ideal location, and if there's any financial considerations, one over the other. And then the Comcast has provided the necessary upgrades on the cable, and that will be installed from the point of reception at the building across into the studio. So it's exciting to be able to have that ability.
And there is faculty already in place that can develop this program?
Yes, yes, we do have faculty already on board.
And the only other thing I would add to that is I mean, I think it's great work that you did in terms of the collaboration and moving this forward, and it's a great beginning. I think we need to, every year, need to kind of add on to it. I know a couple of years back, and I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years, where, you know, we were advocating for a third channel that was strictly education, which is kind of required, you know, by law, that cable fund money. So I think this is a good start, that we start there, and then I think if we continue to move forward, because we definitely have, I thought we had programming back then. I think we have even more programming now to fill a channel.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Did we ever get this?
No. It's there.
It's there, it's
Yeah.
there.
We have 3 in
We,
Millville.
yeah, we haven't,
I
Yeah.
wondered if Blackstone had it.
There's a specific channel in Millville that's
yes, for
strictly for
education,
education.
yes.
For-
It's
when
not
it-
used that way, but,
it-
yeah.
It was playing all of our videos, and so it could be utilized other ways, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was mainly dedicated to BMRs.
Right.
I have a quick question on the Bi-County Collaborative. I noticed on the 4th bullet, it says Bi-County will be offering registered behavior technician course for paraprofessionals and teachers beginning in late February. Is this course going to be for our paraprofessionals as well, or just?
I believe it would be for ours, those that would want to get this designation.
Okay, so it's a
Absolutely,
choice.
yes.
It would be a choice. I'll ask my questions in a little bit, but,
Okay.
okay, thanks.
Sure.
Um,
I'm sorry. So just to continue on, the cable update is important because of the next item, which is the school choice enrollment. And every year, districts have to track down where their students are and where they go. And as you can see, enclosed is our enrollment this year, which is down a little bit from last year at the top. You see the 2 towns. There's a choice in number and a choice out number, along with our students that attend BVT, Norfolk Aggie, Tri-County, those that homeschool, and then the in-state and out-of-state private. So we have a total of 306 students who go outside of the district. And like many districts, most districts in the Commonwealth, enrollment is declining, certainly as birth rate and demographics shift, although being able to offer a TV studio and all that goes with it, I think will be a very, very big selling point for students. And again, that school choice enrollment, we have to do that by statute every year.
Do we have a cost for Norfolk Aggie this year?
I believe the current tuition is $22,000
Per student, right?
per student, and then there's transportation costs on top of that. Those monies get charged directly to the town's cherry sheets.
Thank you.
Now,
And, sorry?
students can select those options, BVT, Norfolk Abbey, Tri-County, because those programs offer programs we don't offer.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Do we ever then track those students to make sure that they're still in those programs? Or does anybody?
It's only for Tri-County, I believe, for your point.
Okay.
Because people can choose, Blackstone Valley, Norfolk Aggie is our school. We have an agreement that they go there, and they have specific tracks. Tri-County is the only one that is kind of an exception, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong with this, because the only way you should be able to go there is if they.
We don't offer something.
If BVT doesn't offer it.
Okay.
BVT is our vocational school.
Okay.
So, and there's a few, I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's a few that are offered there. I think they have a law and legal track that they started. And I think 2 years ago, BBT was trying to develop a couple more that would eliminate some of that.
Gotcha.
A little bit.
Mhm.
But I think Tri-County is the only one that, to your point, where has to offer something different than BBT in order to go there.
Gotcha.
Or I believe students who do not get accepted to BVT and still want to experience that
Oh.
are also, I believe, accepted and
I
eligible.
think you're
Oh.
right.
I didn't know that.
I think you're right. I think it's because we hit our maximum per community, both Blackstone and Millville. I think if it's because it's not offered in our district, they can't achieve it through going to BMR, to BVT, so they have the ability to go to Tri-County. So even if it's a replication of the class, the course, they can still go to Tri-County. But it doesn't matter, because when you ask the question whether it's tracked as to whether they're staying in that curriculum or criteria, they have to be, because we, by federal law, can't offer it anymore without special permission of the Department of Education, as I'm finding out, because one of the questions I had, Jane, is why, in the face of the realistic reality of the economy, don't we go back to what happened to wood shop, metal shop? Well, what happened to computer science as a technical component? Apparently, there's restrictions from the Department of Ed that require us to go out and ask them, almost their permission, to allow us to have a quasi-vocational program within the school. So like I said, I'm just sitting here for the first time, so I'm immersed in the bureaucracy of it. It sounds to me like it's a great use of our resources to confine us and restrict us in terms of what we can do educationally with our students. I guess they're on one track, and that's pretty much it.
Norfolk Aggie is in our cohort? No. So we
We're
can't
considered
track-
an out-of-district.
Right,
Right.
so we
Right.
can't track those kids that are going to Norfolk Aggie?
Track
And
how,
making
or,
sure that
like, chip
they're
'em?
still in their
What do
program,
we do? We
or?
put a chip on them?
No, but.
In terms
No,
of-
but, $22,000 a
Times
year.
20.
Yeah,
lot of money.
times 20 is a lot of money if a student who ends up going there ends up in a college track and going on to college and going,
But they can go on to college.
Yeah,
Well,
but they
no, I-
can't.
I know.
They
I
can't
get
do
that,
though,
but-
Jane, they can't do that in that school. They have a dual criteria in all these schools. When you go to Valley Tech, you can't make the decision, I don't want to go to shop. You get a dual
While you're
degree.
there,
While you're there, you get, but I went to Valley Tech. I'm not working in a machine shop. Does that make me, I don't think you should,
You owe the
punish
town-
somebody.
You owe the town some money.
yeah, and I'm not
Lot of
trying
money.
to take away from the student, education and variety of their education, and I'm a firm believer in lots of choices and, finding what fits for you as a school, as a whatever. I'm just concerned from a budgetary standpoint, the sheer dollars that are paid to out of our towns to send students to schools to potentially get an education they could get in our own schools.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but the problem we face is we can't replicate some of the features of their educational program because we're restricted by the Department of Education. So our problem is that, they went in this one direction some time ago, and along with the industrial dissolving of America's industrial base, the trades have changed dramatically, even at BBT. My trade is not even there anymore. It's some other, combination of 3 trades. But the actual ability of us to do what you say and compete with them has evaporated. We don't have, unless we're going to make a major step to go to the Department of Education and seek a waiver, right? Isn't that what we need to seek a waiver? And it's an extraordinarily long, complicated process that could potentially deprive us of funding from the federal government, because they hold the purse strings. We can't compete. But I agree, because at one point I'm scratching my head going, wouldn't it be cheaper just to rent a limousine and drive these kids to school than to hire the bus? Seems to me, because I figured it out, the limo would have been 35% cheaper. Give them water, coffee in the morning, just ship them. But, the reality is just the way the bureaucracy of education in this country is, in the direction it's going. That, we finance it through tax dollars, and the kids that go to our schools, they're on a kind of a single track.
There are, to your point, a handful of high schools that are still comprehensive, that have the full suite under one roof, like a Tantascwa out in Brimfield, Sturbridge, or a Durfee or a Taunton, where they do have everything under one roof, but it's the waiver process and a lot of money if you want to get to that.
They don't have,
point.
but those bigger, or they're either big and, sound in terms of their programs, or they were way out. Remote, and they didn't have access to the vocational, agricultural type programs like Norfolk Aggie. But, Norfolk Aggie is, that's, kind of a unique facility. I mean, it teaches you unique.
No, and I understand all of those points. I guess what I was trying to say is, okay, there's a student who, as a, middle school 8th grader, decides they're gonna be raise cattle, and so goes to the agriculture, and we all know students change I change my mind on a weekly basis, but, they're gonna go raise cattle, and so they start in this agricultural program, and then, their sophomore year in high school, they decide, that's not for me, I'm gonna go to college and study business, but I'm still going to the agriculture school, because I'm on, my track or whatever, and the towns are still paying $22,000.
Our town is.
Our town, yeah, okay.
Because it's
I
a
think
different rate for.
Everybody.
I think the problem you run into is this, Jane. The problem with that, and it's from practical monetary perspective, but if that kid's in middle school, and I'm going to use my own personal situation. When I was coming up through Bellingham High School, that's when they had the fiasco on the football field, I call it, where everybody came and told me it was so huge, they had it on the Bellingham football field, and all the new people came there and voted for the new high school. It cost them $1 million, by the way. And the old townies just sat there and were quiet, and everybody voted, and everybody was applauding, yes, we just approved it, and went home. Then the townies brought it back to the floor and defeated it. Bellingham had to go on split sessions. They almost lost their accreditation. It cost them a fortune to get to the point they are now. And my parents said, you're not going to that school. And the educational quality at BBT was so much better. And it was almost like going to, they couldn't afford Mount. They weren't going to keep me in Bellingham. I took the test for Valley Tech and I got in. I got a phenomenal education there. From an academic perspective, I got a very practical education from I was in machine shop and worked as a tool and die maker, so I had that kind of practical background. But it's just the educational experience. You're right. Halfway through, I don't know how Norfolk Aggie is, but Valley Tech, you had that week in your freshman year. I had to repeat the freshman year because you can't start Valley Tech as a sophomore or junior. You can't go in, because you have to do all 4 years of the vocational program. But we can't compete with that. I guess that's the end line of that very long, we can't compete. What do you offer somebody like that? What you offer them is, and what we hope to do here is, you offer them a better educational product. That's what you do.
You make the choice harder. 'Cause the choice is always gonna
That's
be
right.
there.
Exactly.
And so instead of trying to say, these are the back, no, we want to come up to them so that when little Joey's sitting in middle school and he's making a choice of what school he goes to, he's looking at BMR with its arts programs, whether it be through music, its sports programs, whether it be through, or its academic excellent type programs. I'd like to get national excellence awards. Not that I begrudge the band, they do phenomenal things, but I like to reach that level that Valley Tech does academically, nationally, and get that blue ribbon type accreditation or accolade and say, look at what we've done. And that way that kid in middle school, that becomes, then we're on an equal running. Then we're in the game.
And what John has just said is the crux of what I delivered opening day, and Mrs. Vanaco was there. And I told all of our staff, let's let people worry about us. Let's not worry about everybody else. Let's make sure that we upgrade our curriculum and our technology, that we achieve best practices in the classroom, that we improve our instructional delivery, that we increase the rigor of our curriculum, that we go and add courses where appropriate that allow not just our 7th and 8th graders, but our 3rd and 4th and 5th graders to say, everything you just said, that's where I want to go, because I know I can get what I want right here in town, and that's what the mission is.
And not to get but to get back on the soapbox again, that's what people need to understand when we go to these town meetings in April, is that when you invest in this educational program, you're actually saving money, because you're stopping $22,000 a student from going out the door, because they're leaving. And if you don't believe that they're leaving, look at the charts and what it costs us. So you have to pay to get an economic or financial recovery, not to mention the fact that the quality of education goes up.
We expect that our NEASC visit that occurred, our accreditation visit that occurred in October, the report will be coming out over the next couple of months, and that we will be shown in a very favorable light to the increases that we have. Our high school is a level 1 high school based upon our 2015 accountability status, and the percentile of our ranking continues to grow every year. And we have a lot of great things happening, and we just need to make sure that we get that word out to everyone that that we are improving each year, and by our offerings and by how we teach and by what we teach, and we are on the right track.
Great,
Back
thank
to-
you.
I'm sorry?
Back to what Jane asked, though, about checking in on, I know there was and I feel like Steve might be the only one that remembers this. Wasn't there something that was done in their sophomore year for the kids that did go to the voc schools that,
But they
I
had to
thought our
have some kind of
office-
an academic, or what, check in and make sure
I
that they're
thought
still.
the check-in that they were still, on track, or based on Jane's question.
Yeah, because
is
my
to make
question
sure
is,
they
we
were
lose them,
still-
we've lost 140, well, I
And they
don't know,
also have sent kids
100.
back, correct? That
With
haven't-
rare exception, and it's usually students who, for whatever the reason, aren't as comfortable there as they
Didn't fit.
thought, and they come back.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for parents and students to have all these choices.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission
Is to
is
make
ju-
ours the best choice.
is to make ours not the default, but a very competitive choice. And
And I
that's
do
where we're
think
moving.
we're on the right track.
Yeah.
And what would we be tracking, just so I understand?
I believe the way I remember it, and this goes maybe before all of our time, was to make sure they were still, the kids that were at Tri-County and left for something that wasn't offered at BVT were still taking that shop that they had elected for that might have been available at BVT, I believe, and probably same thing for Norfolk. If there were duplicate
Yeah.
curriculums
If
that
they
they
changed
were.
like their major, for lack of a
Right.
better term, they
Right.
went to
But-
a different
But
track.
in the same respect, to have our own argument, kids don't choose their their shop at BVT. I don't know how Tri-County.
Well, I
works,
think,
so.
I think Norfolk Aggie is you're in kind of an exploratory for the first
A year?
1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, but the reality is, it's an agricultural school. We're never gonna offer.
It was
animal
supposed to be
science.
between
Never gonna-
Norfolk.
Right, you know, and it's the same with BVT, the specific tracks. And the
Yeah.
reality is, there's always gonna be that couple of handfuls that are gonna go there every year. And that's the beauty of having that choice. I think the focus, like people have said here today, is we have to make our choice, the BMR choice harder. That's all. That's all. And-
Harder to
and-
leave.
And we are doing
Yeah.
it. We are doing it.
I really think it was more, it wasn't BVT kids, it was the kids that the towns were paying for. And if they
Changed their
switched over
mind.
to a shop
Right.
that was available at BVT, that they were moved to BVT, so.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that's,
that's my
that's
memory.
something, we're starting the budget process now. That's something I'm gonna ask every one of the presenters is, what are we doing to make our district more attractive? We've been doing it for years. We added football, we had a lot more AP courses than we used to.
We gave out t-shirts.
T-shirts of the kindergartners. But no, that's what we're trying to add. And, you know, hopefully Osiris has got some plans for us as well. Bring in more and more activities. And you're right, make BMR where you want to go, not, but, yeah, we've been not battling with, but competing with BVT for years and years and years. And that's always going to go on. I don't want to bash them or anything like that, but it's, you know, it's just a different track. But we want BMR to be the track. But we have kids like Eric and Griffin are great examples of what BMR can turn out. I mean, Griffin's going to Duke, and he's getting a heck of a lot of money to go there. A lot of our kids are going to some tremendous schools. I'd like to see maybe Mr. Goulet can come and just give us a dollar figure. How much money in scholarships the BMR kids are earning. So when we go to the towns and say, okay, we're looking for another $100,000 in additional contribution, but do you realize that the, you know, Blackstone Millville kids have, say, I don't know, $4 million in scholarships? We're asking for $100,000. That paid off in $4 million. I think that's the kind of comparison we need
Yeah,
to
that's a
make
great
and
point.
demonstrate your money has impact.
For your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
great point.
Just a couple of more points, and I know we have some folks that are ready to give the beginning information regarding FY17. I wanted to thank our representatives at the Grayton General Court, Senator Ryan Fatman and Representative Kevin Kuros, for setting up the recognition for our marching band. It was short notice. We were able to make it work, and it's going to be a great experience for the entire band to go in and get a tour of the State House, and thank you, gentlemen. Also, everyone probably saw all the information contacting the International Space Station last Tuesday from this school via ham radio was an experience that those that were there will never forget. And one more reason why it's pretty exciting to attend BMRSD. The last point I have is that I will be offering at each one of our schools over the month of February into early March, Supper with the Super. And the food service staff has graciously agreed to allow anyone who wants to come, students, staff, school committee members, elected officials from town, seniors, parents, anyone who wants to come to have a conversation. I will be giving a short overview of where we are, where we're going, also some information around budget and what we have on our agenda, but it will be a great chance to have an exchange of ideas as we move forward, and that will be forthcoming very soon. We have our business manager, Ms. Cobb, here tonight to give a review of the second quarter financials, and then we also have Ms. Braverman and Dr. Thompson and Mr. Gonzalez to give us the beginning information around the needs for our FY17 budget. So thank you, Ms. Cobb.
Thank you, Mr. Himmelberger. Good evening. Thank you for the time for the review of the second quarter revenue report and expenditure report. Starting with the revenue report as of December 31st, 2015. The total revenue year-to-date is $23 million. The district has received 3 out of 5 payments from both towns, and 6 payments out of 12 from from the state. It's Foundation Budget Funding, Chapter 70. And as reported, the school choice is showing deficit. We received circuit breaker first quarter, and not yet the Chapter 71B transportation reimbursement. And we also have other revenue received, so it brings up the total of about 12.5 million we received so far. Any questions about the revenue?
Well, yeah, I do have a question. So
Okay.
I'm looking at just the total, and we budgeted 23 whatever, and we're expecting, but that doesn't add up to what we budgeted. So are we falling short of our budget, and have we adjusted the budget?
No, it adds up.
Off.
Anticipated and received, if you add those two numbers together,
12.5 plus the 10.5?
they equal 23 million.
Yeah.
Is it exactly the same?
It should be,
I
it
did
should be the
this at
same.
home. I
David,
did this at
do some
home.
Common Core math with her.
No, I did this at
Get
home.
the tens out.
The tens, the ones, the hundreds, come on now, Jane.
Don't teach the algorithm, though.
I didn't even use my calculator and it came out with, yeah, that's about it.
I did this at home. It didn't.
The received and the anticipated should equal the projected amount.
Somewhere it didn't, though, but I'll check. I'll get back with you.
Okay.
But somewhere it didn't.
Because she's wicked smart, so.
Are we where we should be in
That's-
terms of,
yeah, that's
of
my question.
received and anticipated? Because I know we're roughly in the middle of the year, so I'm
Yes.
just wondering if that's consistent with what we normally get year after year at this time.
Yes.
I have a question. What is the difference between the athletic admissions and the student fees?
Student fees are the user fees,
Uh-huh.
music and athletic user fees, and the admissions is more gate receipt.
Just I don't know if this falls into this category, but our hockey kids are in a co-op with another town.
Yep.
Milford?
Yeah.
Or Bellingham?
And I believe we have one player right now.
Do they pay, all right, so maybe it's better to talk about football. Football, we accept Hopedale kids in. Do they pay our user fees? And is it included in this total?
That's a good question.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. I just,
Let me find it.
I'll put that on my
I can
list.
find out for
I
you.
know where. Okay, I'll ask her.
Any other questions?
So I'll move to expenditure. The year-to-date expenditure is
You're on the
on
next
second
page, right?
page. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the second page of expenditure chart. The chart is comparing the projected figures of each functional code to the approved budget. So right now, when we look at the last line, the bottom line of second page, the status was showing a positive 361,000, which is healthy balance. I would like to provide some comments on some of the accounts as well. If we look at the first page, lower part towards to the right, 2,000 instruction, total showing a deficit of 31,000.
Can you just tell us where we are again?
Okay.
First
first
page.
page.
First page of
Okay,
expenditures.
got it.
Okay, 31,000 in deficit, mainly because an ELL teacher added, and the coverage of ROAs and the turnover gaps. And at this point, I would like to keep some, it's okay to keep some accounts closed, some accounts open, because we still unsure about the utility use of the year and the heating cost and special education tuition. So I would like to hold off till April 1st, after April 1st, to propose some move of the budget. And the transportation, we move a little bit lower to 3300, pupil transportation. We're in deficit 45,000. It's mainly because of the overspending of special education out of district transportation.
Can I just, Matt, clarify a question? So the negative balance in the 2000 instruction category,
Yep.
you said was because of ELL, adding the ELL and the an increase in aids?
Coverage.
The coverage? Okay.
Mhm. Yep. And the second page, 9,000 programs with other systems. It's special education tuitions. So right now it's showing a deficit of 165,000. But the district has ability to offset the balance using circuit breaker and other revenue source. So towards the end of the year, we're showing positive.
And that's to offset the
The 130.
deficit in the collaborative education. We have other sources that aren't reflected on the page,
Revenue.
on revenue.
On the revenue?
Circuit breaker and IDEA grants.
Where will they be factored in the budget?
So we received the payment in quarters for circuit breaker. Now we only received the first quarter, so it's not, we're not able to offset the whole amount.
I see. So we're still anticipating a little over $250,000, $251,000.
3 quarters is, about 200,000 in circuit breaker.
Yeah, 'cause you got 251. Is there a, okay, I answered my own question, I see it.
Okay.
But I have my question again, because now I found, it's like I've looked at this before, and I still keep, but if you look at the expenditures, there is a budgeted amount, 21,791,340. You look at the revenue, and there's a budgeted amount, and it's 23 million. So what happened to the other, where's the other piece?
The budgeted revenue and budgeted.
If you look at, I'm putting all these numbers together, and maybe I'm comparing apples and oranges, and that's, I guess, what I want to know. But if I look at the bottom line of your last page, which says the expenditure report, and there's what was budgeted, it says 21,790,000, whatever. I need my reading glasses.
134,
Thank you. But if I look at your revenue, and there's a budgeted amount, it's 23,045,000. So, not doing my Common Core math, there's a million something.
Right.
Million two, thank you. That we have budgeted to come in that we didn't budget to spend. So I'm wondering why. Am I,
I'm with you.
are you
I'm
seeing
with
this?
you, Yeah, yeah, basically
The two numbers don't add
in
up.
revenues, we have 23 million,
Yeah.
and we're spending
21.
21.7.
Right,
So where's the difference?
where, yeah,
The 21,791,340.
yep,
That's the general fund budget approved by town meeting. The statement of revenue includes other revenues that we use to offset. And so the beauty of school budgeting is you're basically talking sometimes about 3 different fiscal years at the same time.
Yeah.
The year you're in, the year you just closed, and then the year that you're planning for. But at the end of it all, we account, the auditors account, and we account for the spending and the offsets of other revenues, which allows us usually to have an
Add to
excess and deficiency at the
E&D.
end that we can
That was
then
gonna
use
be
for
my
the
question.
upcoming year
Gotcha.
as an offset. So it's a rolling, usually 3 years that Gwen gets to keep all the apples in the air
Okay.
at the same time. But
Just
that,
as an example, though, Alan, what are some of the other revenue sources, just so people at home listening and people here can understand?
right, well, you see what's listed here is Chapter 70. Then we also show the Chapter 71, which the committee did set up
Transportation.
the extra additional funds so that monies can be used for the forthcoming full year. You also have circuit breaker, which is an offset account that the state funds based upon a formula. And then you also have things like the Medicaid reimbursement, building rental, which BICO gives to us. So those are additional revenue sources that we use throughout the year because school budgets are so elastic. You know, if we get another snow like we had last winter,
Right.
there's a lot of money that we're going to use to shovel those roofs. If we have 2 weeks of sub-zero, that adds up very quickly on our utilities. It only takes a student who comes into our district with an expensive IEP, and we would gladly make sure that we support those students' education. So there's a lot of moving parts to a school budget, and but I think, as Wen said, we are well positioned now as we head into third quarter. But she does a great job of constantly updating and knowing what's coming and what's going.
Actually, can we just look at the 2000 section in the instruction? I think I know the answer to some of these because some of the numbers look, a negative and a positive look very similar. I know we're a negative 31,000 roughly, but like just some of the big numbers going down. 2305 instructional classroom teachers were plus almost 40,000 there.
Mhm.
But then therapeutic services were shy 35,000. I know is that just a coincidence, or are they related in some way?
They're somehow related because we have turnovers on the teachers, so we save some money on the instructional line, but we also need the outside service from BICO and French River to cover those services for students. So that's where we charged the medical and the therapeutic service is where we charged for the outside service.
Okay.
And it's not, Steve, it's not a dollar for dollar
I know.
Right.
impact, but it really, you have to look at the total and then make sure that within the total, you have enough available revenues to offset, as well as how you're spending. And this is the time of year where you have to be very careful from third quarter in, because you have weather and you have special ed costs that could be volatile until the April 1st date. So it's a full-time.
I understand the weather. Can you educate me as to why the special needs numbers would be volatile?
The special education is impossible to foresee because in our society, we are a very, very transitional society. When you and I, John, were kids, that classroom you started in September never changed. And now we have students that move for whatever reason, sometimes several districts in the course of a year. We don't know in advance where we're getting them. We only set that budget, in May for July 1.
I see.
You could have students who leave the district and there is a savings
So
to
it's
the
an
budget.
addition, it's not necessarily a
Right.
modification of an individual criteria, a curriculum for a child, but it's a
Right.
new child coming in or a child leaving. I
And,
see.
and as the Foundation Budget Review Commission studied all last year
Yeah.
to see how they could improve the funding of school districts, they came up after all of that public hearing across the state and all of the work by tremendously smart people, that the two drivers of school budgets that are impossible to predict year to year are health insurance and benefit costs and special education. And, there's lots of ways to be creative. I think that, the obviously more affluent districts can send all of their students out because that's what they want to do, but they have enough funding that they set revolving accounts aside to be able to fund in that year. Most of the smaller districts have to really be just vigilant and know where there is elasticity within that school budget throughout the year. And that's the art of the science.
I have a question. Teaching subs in the negative of 59,000. Is this professional development subs, or is this, because I know
Well,
we have permanent
there's a
subs.
positive 56,000 in professional development, so it's just you've had to pay the sub, you just haven't balanced the money yet?
Well, part of that, I believe, and I don't have the details, but part of that is that we did not get our Title II-A grant, and I think some of the funds need to be moved to that grant, and that has not happened yet. So I'm not exactly sure how much that will be, but that's.
And we did have to cover some areas as folks came and went. So there is a little bit still in the classroom line of 2305 because we had several teachers who were on a leave of absence. So that even though that was initially budgeted, we had some savings by the subs that they had, and those long-term subs would show there. So it's again a bit of offsets and overspend and underspend, and just to make sure that when you come down the stretch, you know where you're going to be able to cover the holes if you have any. Thank you, Mrs. Cobb.
Thank you.
Great job.
Actually, she's staying for our executive
Yes,
session,
yeah.
correct? Okay.
How is the absentee? How are we doing with numbers of absences for teachers and time off?
Are you cold?
In comparison to other years. I'm just wondering how are we doing with that? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's,
in apples to apples, we're in pretty good shape.
okay.
You know, in the day-to-day world, we
Okay.
do have some long-term,
Mhm.
you know, whether it's medical or maternity or leaves that we do have. But
Okay.
overall, we have pretty darn good.
We're doing well with,
attendance, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's nice to be here. It's nice to see everyone on such a cold winter's night. Especially very nice to see Mr. Chaplin here this evening.
Oh, great.
Hello.
It's great to be back, thank you.
It's great to see you. Just want to throw out, boy, am I at the right place at the right time. I worked at Norfolk Aggie as a school social worker for 3 years. If you want to gain insight as to why kids leave their home districts and go to that school, I'll certainly take those phone calls or emails. I have some real insight as to why kids do that. I also have some real insight as to how many of those students do go on to the track that they enlisted for. And I think Blackstone's Pride and Joy, who went to Norfolk Aggie, is now a national rodeo star, Miss Kirsten Empling. So these kids do go on to those fields. But I'd be willing to have a conversation. So this evening, I'm just going to ask you to excuse me, I'm fighting a bit of a cold. And I was going to do the PowerPoint up there, but I thought I was going to be operating off a keyboard. So I'm not going to touch this, I'm just going to ask you to look at your packets. I put this presentation together basically in response to an email that had been forwarded to me, that Mrs. Greenstein had asked some real good questions about things that were going on in special ed. And so I think to give some of the rationale of the budget and the state of which we're in, you need some background information. You need the background story. So we know that we are committed to providing students with a safe and a supportive learning environment that promotes academic excellence, personal responsibility, and social development. We look for opportunities in special ed to deepen and revise our understanding of special education, the federal and the state laws, as well as the regulations and the MGLs. What we continue to do is look at, are we using our resources as most effectively as we could be? And that's what I hope we can have a real good conversation tonight about. We look at the data and that drives us decisions for future service needs, staffing requirements, and responsible and sustainable budget recommendations. So one of the things that we're constantly looking at is improving the academic achievement for our students. As you know, the special ed population has not been meeting its targets for our MCAS, and we're not unlike most districts. Special ed students really struggle with meeting those targets. Placement decisions have been team-driven, and they're designed to ease the obstacles and barriers that come with a student's area of disability. So an area of priority has been maximizing the potential of students who require the sub-separates, especially in the area due to the emotional disabilities. The number of students with emotional disabilities continue to rise throughout the district, but they also continue to rise throughout the Commonwealth, so we're not unique. The Office of Special Education established a comprehensive social emotional services, and I have to say, I cannot take any credit for that. That was all established before I arrived. The programs and the services for the emotional disabilities among our students is so important to look at. And these classrooms were founded on the teaching practices that promote social emotional learning that's set by the state. It's where learning becomes exciting while reducing aggression and emotional stress for students. So the classroom culture supports the Massachusetts social emotional competencies, which help the students become better communicators, cooperative members of a team, effective classroom leaders, self-advocates, and resilient individuals. What we're really trying to instill in this particular group is resiliency, fortitude. Integrated within the delivery of social emotional services are the establishment of positive and predictable classroom and school environments. Social emotional learning has been woven into every opportunity where students first and foremost feel safe, supported, and welcomed. This included a focus on school values, the culture, and classroom, and small group expectations and Tier 3 interventions that also include behavioral supports for the students who are in those programs.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? In particular to this slide, I'd like to know what that looks like in our school. So for instance, social emotional learning has been woven in every opportunity where students feel safe. What does that look like in our school?
Okay.
So give me a specific example.
Absolutely. So a student can come in who gets off the bus, is very dysregulated, is already shutting down for the day or beginning to act out. And so we work really hard to transition that student from perhaps the chaos of whatever happened in the morning to be able to shift to be ready to learn. And so I'm looking at the elementary school program right now. What we usually do in that program is we start the day with something that's very fun, exciting, in a way almost distracting from what the issue was that had stressed the student out. So first thing when the kids arrive, there are these stations that are set up that immediately grab their attention. So she does a very, very nice job in planning for the unexpected. Now, there are times when students need to take turns, and perhaps one student is becoming monopolizing, wants all of the teacher's attention, and what we do is we talk about what the values of that, the turn taking, how does that make so-and-so feel? Maybe on the count of 3, I'll come back to you. So wherever there's an opportunity to show kids that they have another student next to them who also wants a turn, who wants to go to the station, it's time to move on, the teacher and the parents in that classroom do a wonderful, wonderful job.
When this was being developed for the elementary school last year or the year before, whenever, we talked about this program as a very fluid program. So in other words, they may be in that classroom because they had an emotional morning, we'll calm them down, get them refocused, and then go into their regular, if you will, I don't know what you want to call it, but traditional classroom. Is that happening, or are we seeing students stay in the social emotional classroom for the majority of
That may
the
just
day
not
and
be
time?
ready to enter that regular ed classroom right now.
I think I have to give the credit to the BCBA, who, Rebecca Ryan has done a very nice job in being able to identify those kids who may need to come in for a short time and then go into inclusion. And being able to, or let's say, I want to say an elective, I'm thinking of the high school right now, but a special. And what she's done a very nice job is helping teachers be able to support that student within the classroom. So those transitions are happening rather quickly. There is the mainstay in the classroom, where we know those students do need to be in that classroom throughout the day. But we do look at opportunities all the time to say, when can that student then be integrated into perhaps the subject that they're the strongest in? They have a real desire to read or to do math. We absolutely want to do that. And so the fluidity is very important.
But the fluidity is happening.
So,
With the population we have right now, it's more that it's not happening because those kiddos right now are not ready for that. But to credit Rebecca Ryan, the kids who were needing more of that at this point in the school year have become more stabilized and are transitioning into their classrooms.
so
But it's available, especially for a student who something unpredictable happens in the family. They go through a period where they may need to come back into the classroom.
So, piggyback on your point, the percentage, I guess what I'm wondering, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, but in the beginning of the year, there's a certain population in that classroom. So I guess I'm wondering is, based on that population that entered that classroom, and whether they were coming or going, because it's fluid, what's the percent of students that have been in that classroom that have at least made it out of that classroom or is making that fluid movement from the beginning? So I guess I'm looking for progress
Give you
or,
numbers. Yeah.
a percentage. You could say a fourth of the students have made their, from the time they started into this program, they were full in that classroom all day long, to the percentage of, we have about, 4 students have now can make it out of the classroom into a regular, education classroom. So I guess we're looking for that. Is there progress? So what's the
Right.
percentage
Is this
of the
working?
Is this working?
Is this working?
And I want to kind of jump in, rather than just straight percentages, what are the true numbers? Like,
Yeah.
is this 10 kids, 40
Right.
kids, 6 kids?
So let's just use the number 12. So,
Okay.
okay, let's just say 6 at the high school, 6 at the elementary. At the elementary level, there was one particular student who we wanted to see more included through inclusion and help support the teacher and the BIPs, the behavior intervention plans. That's worked very well. We hardly see that student.
Okay.
That student's doing great. The students who are in there on a full-time basis absolutely are making effective progress, but they would not be making effective progress if they were not in that program. They utilize the coping strategies, they utilize the curriculum, but it's specialized, and they require that specialized therapeutic setting.
In that room, in that classroom.
In that
environment.
In that environment.
And would you say that it's mainly more kids on the spectrum, or just general BD kids, or
No.
what are you thinking?
Most of the in the social emotional classroom, those are students who have had some diagnoses in the past, perhaps anxiety, depression, significant, may have seen trauma at an early age. These are fragile kids. These are very, very fragile kids. Kids who are on the autism spectrum, that's a very different population, and we're going to talk about those students. And those students are in what I called the pragmatic learning classroom. The pragmatic learning classroom is very different, and that student is very different from the student who is in the social emotional program. The social emotional program is really supported with the clinical skills of the school psychologists, who we have hired a new school psychologist, Colleen Paterno, who is fabulous and has really hit the ground running going into the classrooms, reaching out to families, building trust with teachers, and just has embedded herself really well into the classroom rather quickly.
And this social emotional in the elementary school in particular was only for a few grades. Is it still only for a few of the, or is there?
Well, it'll evolve based on the need, but right now, it is the younger grades.
Right.
But within special ed, there's lots of regulations. We can't exceed the 48-month rule. So that will kind of dictate whether we apply for a waiver, if we need it, or if we build another classroom. Is there another question regarding social emotional?
There might be.
I don't have to take them in order if you think of one.
No, keep going.
Well, I think we'll have more questions
Yeah.
once we get into
Sure.
what the budget's gonna look like and how it's going
Sure.
to
Okay.
help these students.
Okay. So, let's see. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the question that came up in the email, which was around the curriculum.
So
The
can you just share with the committee that question?
Yes, there was a question, there was a concern, what is the curriculum? Is there a curriculum? Is it robust enough? What exactly are we doing in that classroom regarding curriculum? So what I did on one of the slides is I've listed for you the curriculum that the students in this classroom are taking advantage of. Anything from the Wilson's Foundations to the Great Leaps, the Houghton Mifflin Reading Program, modified by grade, the Zones of Regulation, that's the social emotional curriculum for that classroom, our Excel Math, our Reading A to Z, and then we've also found that many of our students are doing very well with our online resources, which is the K-12 Reader, K-5 Learning, the Enchanted Learning, the Ed Helper, ABC Teacher. The science and the social studies is still another area of which I continue to be concerned about. Right now, they are sharing resources with the grade 2 homeroom teachers, but we are looking to figure out how we can offer more of the science centers. Any questions around curriculum?
That wasn't my question, really. I guess my question was more, a lot of these students went to, what was it, in Plainville? Where were they before they came here?
FICO?
Where was it?
FICO?
FICO,
Yes,
right.
sure.
So they had a program that's been established and that's set, and they have, everything that the students need in that program. Since this is a beginning year program, my question was, are we reaching all the students in that room like BICO would be? Because BICO's been, they've been developed, they've had their program up and running, whereas, this is our first year doing this program. So I guess my question is, what are the things that we are looking for in order to meet the needs of all the students? Because clearly this is a first year, so there has to be, there's gotta be growing pains, and I guess that's what I'm looking for, is they're identified, and then where does that go in terms of the budget? So that was kind of my curriculum question is, the established programs that BICO had, where are we in relation to that? We can't possibly have all of them in our first year.
No.
So that's my question on, are we supporting, all of the students in that classroom?
Right. I believe, yes, we are supporting all of the students in that classroom. Are there more curriculum options that we would like to explore? Of course. The teacher in that program had come from an out-of-district setting. When she came to us, she had a plethora of things that she wanted to have ordered. And when I came on board in August, immediately we put those POs through. That classroom was our priority, and we stacked it with curriculum and sensory materials. And if anybody has actually taken a tour in that classroom, you'd be pretty well impressed and never expect that this is a year one classroom. And if anybody wants to set up a tour with me, I'd be willing to take you on a tour. And we can go announced or we can go unannounced. Okay?
And so that classroom has had the same teacher?
Yes.
And the same, are there aides in that classroom as well?
Yes.
And have they been the same?
The aides in that classroom have been the same, and they work very well. They're a very, very good team, a very good team. And I think this is a program that we should be very, very proud of.
And this is based in the complex.
And this is based in the complex.
And the teacher, is the teacher special ed certified or regular ed certified?
She's special ed certified, and
Okay.
she's dynamic, and she's creative, and she's energetic, and the kids adore her. And I'm really hopeful.
And how many students do we have?
And that, I used earlier, let's just say 12, 6, and 6. I'm going to stick roughly to that right now, because there are some things that I can't discuss right now. So we'll say 6.
Have any students we hope that it's fluid and students are brought back
Yes.
into the classroom. Are there students who have come from the classroom into the program in the middle of the year, or?
And not in the middle of the
Or
year, because
as we
what we're
go?
doing, I think, is now that we have a BCBA on board, who started with us in late
Can you
spring.
use,
She's a
English
board,
terms?
yeah, she's a
Thank you.
board-certified behavior analyst.
Okay.
And she was brought on board late spring. And I think what has happened is that teachers have seen how they can utilize her within an inclusion or general ed classroom. She doesn't have to be special ed specific. So what will happen is, a student will go through the build and base support team. They'll be looking for, let's say, some behavioral interventions to put in place. And they use her as a consult. So we can solve things at the classroom level before it rises to the point where the student has become so unmanageable that they need and they require the sub-separate.
so we have not brought anybody, or have not had
We
a
haven't
need to
required
bring
to. We
anybody?
haven't, yeah, we haven't been required to.
You said this is at the complex. What are we doing for similar students, say, at Millville?
When it goes through the build and support team, and Rebecca will go over to Millville, she spends quite an amount of time over there, and she works very closely with the staff there. Again, she works on creating those intervention plans to help support them. If she feels as though there's a student who may require the services of a sub-separate, then she will bring that to the team chair, so we can reconvene a team, get parent permission to do that. In some cases, trial it.
So are there no Millville students in this social emotional group now?
No, there is,
Yeah, that's how, yeah,
of course.
yeah,
Sure,
that's all.
sure. And he's a cutie. He's a cutie. Okay. You want to talk about the pragmatic classroom? The pragmatic classroom is to meet the needs of our students with autism. Again, this classroom more accurately recognizes individual students with significant limitations using verbal and nonverbal communication for social purposes, which impairs their ability to effectively communicate, to participate socially, to maintain relationships, and achieve academically. So what the PLC does, and they're doing extremely well, is really maximizing those students' strengths. Students with autism have a remarkable strength to stick to routines, more so than I do. A remarkable strength to use their visual memory when information can be seen instead of spoken. They really are visual learners. An ability to think very concretely, very logically, remarkable memory with attention to detail. And if you've ever been in the company of a student with autism, the straightforwardness and honesty is refreshing. And there's, in some cases, intense focus on tasks that are very interesting, those high-interest areas.
We have these PLC classrooms in what schools?
Okay, so coming on board, we have a PLC classroom at the complex. It's a sub-separate classroom where students need discrete trials and are woven and embedded into inclusion when we feel as though it's appropriate. So we have a little guy now who spends most of his morning in an inclusion class with the support of a para. It's working very nicely.
Do we have a PLC classroom in the middle school or high school?
The PLC classroom at the middle school is something that I need to develop.
Okay.
At the high school, it looks a little different by the time students get to the high school level. What I'm finding with our population at the high school level are more high-functioning and looking at more of the social interventions and the executive functioning interventions that are required for a high school student with those needs. Okay. So the PLC has the expertise of a full-time special education teacher and paraprofessionals who are trained in the applied behavioral analysis. A question came up early regarding the BICO certification, and I have reached out to the staff or to their building principal to talk to their staff about participating in that course. I'm looking to see if I have some grant money that would help support, because there is a $400 charge for that course.
How many paras are?
I'm looking at 2 paras, one in Millville and one at the complex.
$800.
But what about the paras that are servicing the sections we were just speaking of? There's more than 2. So how many?
But those are the social emotional classrooms. These,
You don't see the need?
what,
Training.
my conversations have been with who we have, where we have the ABA tax. And we have the ABA tax in the PLC classrooms at this time.
And there are 2.
And there are 2.
However, going back to the, what Bi-County is offering, wouldn't it benefit the paras that are in the social emotional room?
Would it benefit the paras in the social emotional room? It's something that we can talk to them about. I can talk to Arlene Grubert to see if what that course is going to be offering, is it more targeted towards the ABA certification that we typically use with kids on the spectrum versus behavior and social emotional. The social emotional usually is more of a clinical support. I try to do some advocacy where we don't feel as though kids with social emotional problems are behavior kids anymore. They're social emotional kids. They really need the clinical support. So now inclusion. Throughout the district, there's no doubt we have highly skilled, dedicated teachers, and they have a lot of know-how, and they're offering students with disabilities access to the general curriculum. And we've done a lot of outreach and work with universal design as a learning approach. We have an essentials language-based classroom. This is where literacy continues to be an area of concern. Currently, more than half of all the students receiving special ed services are identified with a specific learning disability in reading. Again, that's not unique to this district. That's common. But what we do need to do, that's going to have a budget implication, is introduce an effective Tier 3 curriculum to address this. So I'll be introducing Read 180. It's the most effective system for raising reading achievement in grades 4 through 12. It's designed to support educators while helping struggling readers meet expectations. It's very well researched, and its effectiveness on student reading achievement across multiple grade levels has been highly documented. So what we had done on our first professional or second professional development actually is we had Scholastic come in. And we actually had the earphones, the programs, we did it right here in the computer lab, and we took it for a test drive. And we received such wonderful feedback from the principals. And this can be used through grades 4 through 12 plus. So you may say, well, what happens with the lower grades? The thing is, the Read 180 isn't normed, and it is difficult when we're looking at programs that are developmentally normed for kids in the lower grades.
What's the cost of that program?
The cost of the program depends and is really driven by how many buildings we want to put that in. So if we wanted to go district-wide, we would be looking at about $60,000.
And that's in your budget that you have in the back of your?
No.
Okay.
What I'm proposing is that we begin a pilot. We start, and we, as the principals and assistant superintendent and superintendent, find our target population, start in one building. So let's keep the math simple for Loretta. Let's just say half of 70 is 35. What Scholastic is willing to do is to then take that 35, divide it in half, charge that to us 1 year, and then the following year the remainder. So they're willing to break up the payments. So what I did was I built into the budget $17,000 for Read 180.
Okay, because now, here goes my Common Core math again. It said 60,000 if
District-wide.
district-wide,
Yep.
but you split 60 in half and got 35.
No, she said 70.
What did I say?
Went
You
to
said
70.
and got,
Because you went to 70.
were you using the same
So if you
number?
split 60 in half, it'd be 30, and half of that would be 15.
Right. What I'm asking for is 17.
Okay.
How many kids could that service?
Or are you targeting a certain
I'm
group?
I'm targeting a building because it's the building hookup. And we had to already go through a IT audit with Osiris, which he has already completed. So it's by site and then how many licenses we purchase. So what I did was, and I can get you the numbers. I ran a report off X2 to see where our kids are loading and where would it make the most sense. And then also looking at, and this is why this decision is bigger than I, do we start in the 4th grade and catch it young? Or do we start at the middle school where it's one building and we're catching them before they get to high school? There's pros and there's cons.
And what did your statistics show you?
And what my statistics show is it's a spread. It's a real spread. It didn't make it easy.
Of course.
You went with?
And so I am going with one building, and I have been able to use the building or the middle school or the high school, but which building we'll start with is still to be determined, because again, that's a bigger decision than I need. Once the budget is approved, then I will ask for the principal's input on that to make that decision where we'll begin.
When you're referring to statistics, what statistical basis are you drawing from?
What statistics?
Where are you getting your statistics?
Like the number of students that are going to be using this program, is that the
Off of
statistics?
X2, off of the X2.
And the X2 says what, specific, like?
You can run a report off X2 that will tell you all the students who are in IEPs due to, let's say, a
It's
language-based
data.
disability.
But I think people that are listening need to understand what
Yes.
X2 is.
Yes.
And so it's a data
It's a
point.
database.
And so you run based on the IEPs. So based on the IEPs and the students who need that reading intervention, so you're pulling the statistics off of that particular reading intervention, this is where it's going to hit.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about the actual program? Is it a series of like leveled readers? Is it all online? What actually is it?
Okay. So who has a student at the high school? Does anybody have a student at the high school?
I do.
Okay.
The senior.
A senior. And let's say the seniors right now are reading The Alchemist.
He's reading Moby Dick right now. But
Okay.
yeah.
For a student who is a low reader or a non-reader, what's happened in the past is we've given the material that we think they can handle, but is age inappropriate. And wouldn't it be marvelous to have a student with a language-based disability to be able to participate in a conversation about Moby Dick or The Alchemist? To be able to compare and contrast, to really have that comprehension piece? So what the Read 180 does is they will do an analysis of where the student's reading level is, and they have books which are current, which are at the high school that are being read right now throughout the country, and they level those readers.
So it is a leveled reader,
Program.
It'll go by the Lexile.
right, but that's leveled.
Yeah, it'll go by the Lexile.
So they'll take like an SRI kind of a test where they'll, you know, it's an interactive thing and it'll
And
fine
it's all
tune
built in.
and come out with a
Yep,
Lexile level.
it's all built in.
Okay. Okay.
It's amazing.
But aren't there, for example, there's a news, you can take a newspaper article or a current topic, there's something called Newslia.
Yeah,
It does the
we have
exact
it.
same thing.
We have it.
You
It's
know, and
excellent.
you essentially say, this person reads at a fifth grade level, so here's the article written to what they
You
can read.
click on 500, 800, 1,000. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And aren't those free?
No.
Or they're free to us, sorry.
Well, it depends on what part of it you have. But I run Newsella, and I have struggling readers in my class. So you click on it's the same information
Yeah.
at a different reading
At
level.
a different reading level.
Correct.
Yes.
So
And
that's
Jim,
kinda
we're
what you're talking about.
Yes, but we're talking about novels and literature.
Yeah.
We're talking about Shakespeare.
That's all nonfiction.
We're talking about things that are age appropriate for high school students.
Can I, just because, and I do apologize, and I do appreciate the effort you put into this report and whatnot, but as I read we're here to talk about the budget, and a lot of what we're talking about is what you would like to bring into the program. Can we actually talk about, is it possible to relate that to the actual numbers that you've given us in the last 3 pages of this 35-page report?
Well, we can do that.
Because
Like it when I
we had a
started.
chance to look at this,
Okay.
we had a chance
Right.
to look at the information.
Okay.
So I think that's a good point.
So you understand about the initiatives and the BICO transport contract, yes? Any
Yes.
questions on that?
Is that in your,
It's in the-
figured into your budget? Or do you have?
No, it's not because they haven't set the rate yet. But it will result in a more cost-effective contract.
So the transportation number we have is budget?
FICO rental at the high school and Millville Elementary. That's what we foresee happening, which will bring in some more revenue.
And where is that in the numbers?
Again, these are anticipated, so we're having conversations with FICO and the superintendent. Have we actually set a rental rate? Not at this time.
Okay, so
These are
they're not
anticipated.
on any of these 3 sheets?
Right,
Okay.
Because the rate hasn't been decided yet, correct?
right.
Are we having a realistic conversation about your budget without any of these numbers actually being in?
Well, I
I
think
mean,
as,
I don't want to
I think the
belabor.
last 3 pages, John, are maybe what you're looking for.
That's, the last 3 pages are what
Right.
I'm looking for, but what I've heard so
It says
far
it
is
down there.
none of what she's talking about is even included within these numbers, from both perspectives, both
Mm-hmm.
from an expenditure perspective and from a revenue perspective.
Right.
So my question to you is, it now being 9:15 at night, is it realistic to have this conversation now? Or is it more realistic to have this conversation when we have real numbers instead of conceptual ones?
well, I think with special ed, you have what you know right now, what you anticipate, and then how you factor in the unknown. So I think special ed comes back to the table more than once.
Well, I agree it comes back to the table more than once, but you're not even talking about what you anticipate. You're talking about conceptually what you like to bring to the table as opposed to, like, for example, revenue in terms of setting rental rates for uses of space.
Right.
That's a definitive number that can be created definitively, but conversations at a certain point, which apparently we haven't been had yet,
Right.
then you can apply it. But the other programs you're talking about are question marks as, that's not even anticipated. That's just question marks that haven't even been flushed out yet with respect to what buildings
That's
you're
right.
gonna incorporate with regard to certain programs that you're gonna offer to particular. And I'm just wondering if this conversation isn't premature to go over the budgetary issues.
Well, I think tonight, everyone is bringing, or tonight, the next 3 meetings, they're bringing us their needs. Whether there's a number attached to it or not, when Alan brings us his budget on what day?
February 10th, I believe?
11?
February 11th.
11th.
11?
11th.
The numbers will be there, but this is building on what the needs are
Except
going
the
to be
needs of the-
fed into those numbers. We might get some right now, but February 11th,
So February 11th, we're going to actually have the
you will have a
actual
budget in
numbers.
your,
Correct.
Yes, and again, February 11th, that's a draft budget.
Right.
We do with what we have for information at the time. It's a ever-changing process.
I
And we
understand it's
have
an
so many
evolving
things.
process. I
And this
just-
is really the top level that gets us understanding all of the pieces. And it's a long process. It's frustrating because you don't say, okay, if X, then Y.
Well, you know what, here's the frustrating part, Al, quite frankly. The frustrating part is, we're talking about conceptually bringing in certain programs and doing certain things, and not one of those things that we're talking about is involved in any of these 3 sheets that are the actual numbers in this voluminous document that we're going through page by page. And I don't mind having conceptual conversations, but when it's on the agenda, we're here for budgetary discussions. And in terms of realistic type budgetary issues and connecting certain buildings and providing certain services, I want definitive numbers so we can make a decision on February 11th. When you bring me the actual number and say, we've made a decision that we're going to bring this program into the elementary school and the middle school, or just the middle school, and we're going to do that. And, you know, discussing the, you know, the benefits as they pertain to any of the students, I'm looking at, because quite
how are
frankly.
you going to make a decision? I'm
Right, because see, what I want to, Eric, I want to look.
You have to know what
But
the
I also
program
want to make decisions based upon realistic numbers, because I want to know, as we go through this process, what expenditure we're making per student, regardless of whether they're a special needs student or a student in the regular curriculum. And I want to know how we're balancing our dollars in terms of our investment in our educational program.
We usually get that at our open meeting.
Well, this is a public meeting.
No,
And
I'm sorry, at our open hearing.
Yeah, no, but what I want to know is, when we're going through this and we're talking in terms of concept as opposed to definitive plans, I don't hear any recommendations. I don't hear anything saying, I want this at this building, or I want it. It's kind of just thrown out there.
And I think I'm going to piggyback on that, because I think that's why I'm asking some of the questions, like this Read 180, where are those numbers as they were? Because we asked last year very clearly for a needs-based budget. What are the needs? So what is working now? I think it is important that we see the concept of what is working, what needs to be tweaked, what, you know, how are these classrooms working? Do we need to extend them to other, you know, not just first kindergarten through 2 now? 2? You know, do they need to go 3, 4, 5, you know, need, so that when we see the need and then the dollars get associated with that need, then
You can make an
we're making informed
informative
decisions.
Right.
What I'm seeing is kind of a review of what exists and why it exists, but I'm not seeing that need, and
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the dollars then that go with the need.
So let's
I-
talk about real numbers then, okay? Because I'm trying to be totally transparent as to where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So under the grants, you see we have several grants here, which amount to almost $500,000, $469,993. Now, that's this year. Here's the bad news. The bad news is next year, this number will be lower if we continue to lose enrollment. If enrollment continues to decline, the grant number will be lower, and I can't even tell you what these grants will be until the department releases those allocations in August. That's why special ed is so difficult to budget for, one of the reasons. I do want to, again, give a nice shout out for the former director for the social emotional classroom. There has been almost a $500,000 cost savings to the district in establishing those programs. For the first year, on a population that will continue to grow, a cost savings of $500,000 it's great.
Can you explain to me, because I saw that sheet, how did it save the district $500,000?
Because we're not sending them out anymore.
Well, I understand, that's the savings, that we're not sending them out of the district, as opposed to the expense associated with keeping them in the district?
Right. So the
You're only allocating a little over $54,000 in para salaries and $78,000 in teacher salaries to the cost of keeping these kids within the district?
Right. That's what we pay. That's what we pay in para salary, that's what we pay in hiring the 2 teachers for those classrooms.
What about all the other costs associated with that?
Classroom expenses.
Well, it's classroom expenses, the majority is the needs, so the school psychologists, you have the OT,
already
the
have them in
PT, we
place.
have those all in the system already.
Oh, I understand that, but when you incorporate more students into the system, you have to allocate that expense accordingly. You can't just ignore it and say, I'm saving you $500,000, because you're not. It's a falsified number. It's created based upon a failure to properly apportion expenses.
If you look at the sheet that Wen gave us
Yep.
on page 2, which is actually page 3.
No, it's page 2 of the expenditure.
Yes, it's page 2.
Don't confuse me now. Took me long enough to figure that out. All right.
The negative number she gave to us.
Yes.
Payments to collaboratives. This isn't even
know.
transportation. This is out of district tuition for the kids that are sent out that we can't service here.
I understand that, Aaron, but some of the reasons why.
I'm just saying, look at that number, John, that's a big difference.
I understand that, but some of these kids that are being serviced outside the district have disabilities that couldn't possibly be serviced within this district, so that's unrealistic to make that statement.
But that's
because
how much we
they're-
pay.
but-
We're just talking
but
about
I
numbers.
understand that that's what we pay, but we're talking about apples and oranges here. What I'm saying is, you're saying you're saving me over $500,000, because the only 2 expenses you're attributing to the savings are 58, about 112,000, let's just say 112, $115,000. I'm saying, when you look at this expenditure sheet includes costs, which you're ignoring when you derive or calculate that $500,000 savings. You're not taking into account the psychologist, you're not taking into account the floor space, you're not taking into account the other elements of this.
Yeah.
Well,
Floor
no,
space
it
and-
wouldn't, it would be difficult, it wouldn't be impossible, but the allocation on an estimated basis, you simply say, well, all it's costing us is, it's costing us a lot more than 2 teachers. It's costing, it's fine, there may be a savings, but you can't look at the collaborative and say, because the cost of caring or providing services to certain students is so phenomenal from an individualized basis that this district couldn't possibly do it from a fiscally feasibly, from a fiscal perspective, because it just doesn't work, because there's certain facilities that already are already created for that purpose and already have the infrastructure in place to take charge of that particular thing. You can't, it's apples and oranges to say, well, we spent, and that's, it's a lot different than saying, well, these kids are going to BVT and we've got this and we've got that. The cost savings, all I'm saying is this, when I look at this and I saw the amount and I was trying to figure out how you came up with the savings, I think you're underestimating the amounts of money you're spending as opposed to what you're saving. You may still, Aaron, you could be completely correct. We could have a savings as a result of the program. I just think you're inflating that number by not taking into account an allocation of the other expenses associated with the education of these children and allocating it to them, as well as than just limiting it to those 2 expenses, that's all.
But the facts are that if we did not do this, and we did this because we sat as a committee for several years saying, how can we service these kids? And we didn't want to do it unjustly. We wanted to make sure we had the program in place for them, and we weren't just keeping them here not to pay the tuition. And how can we stop that number, the out-of-district number, from growing? The only fact that I know is if we had not done that, and we had taken these 12 students and not tried to service them, our budget would be $526,000 higher.
And my point is,
So
that may very well be the
that's-
case, and you're right. Let's assume you're right. My point is, but what you're spending to keep those 12 students here is not $112,000. That's a fictional number. That's estimating the cost of keeping those 12 students in our district. You're creating a number for a benefit. And I'm not saying there's no benefit. So understand what I'm saying, and I
But that,
understand what
these
you're.
two line items are what we had to add to get to a place where we could start a program. We had, the other people would already be in the building, servicing the other kids and the other needs. These 5 positions were put into place for this program. So I think it's fair to use those numbers. I get what you're saying, like, we could get down to square footage of the room and the transportation.
Supplies
Actually, that would,
But
we're
you're right.
spending money to
from
get
a-
them here, and we're not subtracting it.
But
Right.
if this program didn't exist, these kids would be sitting at a desk somewhere.
We would have a
in
$526,000 bill.
Can I just
Okay.
add, I mean, from a pure accounting aspect, you're absolutely right. But this is more of an additional cost look and not a pure accounting look.
You know what, I agree with that statement more than
Right.
I agree with this. But see, the problem I have is, don't try to overinflate the benefit as opposed to the cost, because there are other intangible costs associated with the program.
And John, after sitting on several boards
Yep.
where we've sat with accountants, I've spent more time discussing and explaining that aspect of it than I would explain this number. So this is a simpler number for
And when
people
I've
who do
cal-
not hang out with accountants,
So,
would be able to understand.
And when I've
So-
calculated cost savings in the past for another district, it went by how the budget had been impacted. And I agree with what Erin is saying, how you had to budget for those additional positions. On the last page is the projected budget amount. Okay? Contracted services, 133,601.
Page 32.
Our extended school year services, 63,640. Home instruction, 25. Supplies, these are instructional and non-instructional, so the 17,000 that I'm asking is built into that. What building we're gonna put it in and how that's all gonna operate, I lead that to the leadership team.
So that is in here.
That is in there.
But
where is it?
it's in the
It's factored in the
68,325.
68.
Page 32. But here's my question. So that's 17, but if we're looking from a responsible school district, though you're asking for 17 in 2017.
Right.
We're really ideally extrapolating that out to $60,000.
Yes. But I'm not asking for that all
I
at
know.
once, it's
I
just
get
this
that. I
budget.
appreciate
Okay.
that.
And I'm also thinking about teachers who are learning other curriculums, other math programs, and I'm trying to be mindful of that. So I'm being very intentional as to how it's going to tax teachers to learn another program. So I think piloting and starting small is where the conversation led at the beginning of the year when
And I
we
think it's
took it for a
important
test
to
drive.
pilot and start small and work the tweaks out as you go.
Yeah.
I guess I'm more concerned as, if you said there was a need to, and this is one of my questions that I had sent you earlier, if you felt as though there was a need to, let's say, give paraprofessionals the support that they need or the courses that they need in order to, because they're one-on-one with these children. I mean, to almost a point. So, I had a concern about this room and I did express the fact that I think that these paras need to be trained. So I guess what I was looking for, because I see it in your thing, but in terms of, we need to get 3
Dollars.
paras trained and this is what it's going to do. They're gonna do RBT and it's gonna cost the district this much money. Where we need to, utilize Read 180, and we're gonna do it here, and it's gonna cost the district this much money. So I think, I guess my hope was that I was looking for, the needs that you thought were important to continue the program, and then the cost associated with those needs. So then if we came back as a committee and said, okay, we need to start cutting somewhere, and we need to look at, we just need to look at it as a general statement,
Right.
we can look at it and say the need, there was a need to get paras trained, and we can't drop that, but we need to look at other things. And I don't know if I'm getting it from here, because it is somewhat general. So I think that's what I was hoping to get,
So
to see
let's-
that there would be an improvement. So I think,
Okay, so
although
let's
this
take-
is great, I just was hoping for more of a very,
Detail.
yes.
So when we look at extended year services, do you want me to basically operationalize exactly how that 63 is being spent?
Well, yes and no. Essentially, what we're saying is, we have these programs in place. They have value, and they need to continue, but they need additional support. That support is A, B, C, D, and that support will cost A, B, C, D.
Correct.
We also need to grow. Like this social emotional, we started small. You know, it's only in the complex. It's only K through
It's also in the high school.
two, okay. And in the, well, it was in the high school before, though. That's not new,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
But K through 2 or 1?
3.
3, okay.
So-
Is there a need for 4 and 5?
Right.
Is there a need for a separate one at the, you
Not
know,
at this
what-
time.
Okay. But
Not at
that's
this time.
kind of
Those are
what
the
we
things
need
I
to
think
know, and the
I have
dollars
that
that
all
need
up
to
in
go
my
in.
office. I've got easel paper around my office. It looks like paper chase.
And just know that this is what we usually get. I mean, we don't
Okay.
nitpick the pencils and the,
Right,
you know,
right.
but we don't
Right.
micromanage in that sense, but I think knowing that this is a new program and knowing that, you know, you can't say it's perfect.
No,
Like, that's the
it's
reality
not.
of any new program, whether you talk math or anything, you have to figure it out. And I think, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm speaking for myself, I do know that there are things that need to be, you know, I was just hoping to see those little pieces of saying, this is why we need it, you know, this is the
And
cost
I
that
can't
it's
believe
going
there's
to
not
be.
more technology need. I mean, I just
It
can't.
might be under
Well, it might be
technology.
under the technology.
Maybe.
Oh, jeez. At
And
midnight,
it
we'll
also,
hear about
but
that.
but it also goes under instructional and non-instructional. So it's factored into the 68.
But we
Okay,
don't,
but
we don't
we don't know
that.
what those factors are.
Okay, so you want the 68 itemized, how we arrived to the 68?
We definitely need
Okay.
to know that, because we don't want to come back to you and say, I think another thing we need that's important is last year's
Comparison.
comparison. Because
I would say
if
we-
someone doesn't understand what the line item is, and, you know, and we end up needing to cut $1 million?
The 3-year trend.
Yeah, 3 is good.
Because we know it's going up, and we know there's costs
Right.
there, but, and for the grants as well, I know that's gonna be going the other way.
Right.
So for me, it's helpful for me, and I know it's helpful for the public, to see a trend, you know, as we go along
3
this
years
process.
is a good,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that'll be great to share with the towns, too.
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
yep.
That we
FinCom,
definitely need that,
selectmen.
so we know.
I mean, we know it's fluid, but there's that we have to be able to see trend and
Picture.
data to make
Needs
that
to
informed
be
decision.
a picture.
Okay, so now we're down to teacher substitutes for IEP meetings, it's 28,000. That is what we have spent this year. Do I think we can do a better job with that? Yes, I do. Do I have a meeting schedule to come up with a strategy to lower that cost? Yes, I do. That's on Tuesday, approximately at 11:30 in this building.
Wonderful.
I'm
Jen-
sorry, can you educate me, because they always seem to know, but what are teacher substitutes for IEP meeting?
Okay, so you're teaching your class
Right.
as the teacher, and you have to leave
For
to
your
go to an
IEP
IEP
meeting?
meeting. Somebody has to sub that class.
Yeah.
That's a cost. And with about 300 students on IEPs and 28,000, it's a little less than $1,000 per student a year to have meetings. It's not efficient. And we can come up with a better system. But more importantly than the dollar amount, is we've just taken John away from his classroom.
Correct.
That's not acceptable.
Agreed.
John being the teacher?
John being
Yeah.
the teacher.
John being, what was that?
Well, no.
But were you thinking
But that's
something-
unavoidable.
Were you thinking
Uh,
something?
Almost
But is
unavoidable.
it? But is it? I mean, it is.
Well,
But there-
let's think
Maybe
about,
not.
let's think about contract.
We could
Right.
talk about that on
But
the.
But we're in a
That's
negotiation year. We're in a negotiation year, and the superintendent and I have bounced around a few
We
ideas.
need to know by,
Well, that's great. I
Tomorrow.
can't wait to hear them.
Yes.
no,
I'd be
next
interested.
Thursday.
Yesterday.
Again,
Oh, sorry.
moving target.
We'll have it.
We have a deadline.
Thank you.
Translation services, of course, our transportation. Can I give you a real number with that? No,
No.
because they haven't set the rate.
No.
So where did you get $493
Is that this year?
billion from?
That is what we're if
Feels
we,
like we pay that.
because if we do not, let's say we do not have a contract with them, and we continue to do what we've always done in this district, which is have all these cabs and taxis and van pools go out and about, then that's what it will cost.
But we're gonna go with the collaborative, so there is
That's what
going
we're
to be.
hoping, so there'll be
hope.
savings.
But we need their rate first.
Right,
Right.
but they need to set the rate, and they have not done that.
But can you,
That would be a collaborative.
the shared ridership and the collaborative is awesome, we should
Yeah.
absolutely continue. But can you give us a little estimate now about what the potential savings could be if we move from the cabs everywhere
What are they
to
costing?
this?
They do
Is
it.
it, and no one's gonna hold you to the number,
Yeah.
but is it gonna be 100,000, is it gonna be 200,000, is it?
If they haven't set the rate, I don't know how I would estimate that.
What
And
was the
we've-
rate this year? People that have used it? Don't know?
Wen went to, and maybe Wen can answer that question, because she went to the BICO transportation meeting.
Do you know what they used?
So we have several vendors now, several complaints, and next year
How
they're
many
gonna
students?
use just one.
Right.
So for this year, we don't have a set
Do you know
rate.
what they charged last year?
Do you know?
Last year, in total?
No, what
What was
BICO
their rate?
Oh,
charged as their rate?
it's depending on the district.
In the route, right?
So, yeah, the,
So we're giving them our routes and asking them to bid?
so the only thing I know is
They have a certain number.
they, throughout all the members of the collective, it was 8% of the decrease, 8% decrease on the last year's rate for them, but we're new. So we can totally benefit by switching from several vendors to one vendor. And we can benefit with them because they have the lower rate.
And Wendy, I think you asked how many students?
I got my answer. Thank you.
How many?
22.
3.
33.
33.
But we know, but we can, I think we can, if we were out betting people, we know there's gonna be a savings by you going with the collaborative.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
7 vendors to 1 vendor, or even to 2 vendors is a savings, just in,
Yep.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, sir. Thank
Mr. Everman.
Thank you.
Yes.
And it, as we can see, it's very complex, and it's still early, but we have the homework assignment.
Yep.
We do.
We have the homework
And
assignment.
baptism by fire. It's all good.
Next, we have Dr. Thompson and Mr. Gonzalez
Osiris.
to talk curriculum and technology.
Together?
Is this your right?
Together?
Well, there's connection.
What's that? No, I'm gonna use mine.
I'm-
Want to be out of here by 12.
Well, just
Midnight.
thinking with.
He's
not
that
using
we-
yours.
we
I'm using mine.
Been off
Probably
all night.
should. No, but just thinking that I think, in retrospect, we probably should let them run, get through their thing, and then ask questions later, because we're asking a question on page 2 that's probably answered on page 5. We probably should just let them run.
Sprint. At 9 o'clock, sprint.
Says no signal. Need the Apple TV.
That was like,
All right, well, you'll have to follow along until we can get the,
can't follow along.
oh, here it is. All right.
It's right,
It
it's
did.
It's in the bottom of your phone.
Oh, it's in the bottom, okay. Oh, yeah. okay.
Popped up here. I picked the right option. All right, we'll see if we can get it going.
Oh, you already planned this together, right?
Oh, yeah. We're like
Brothers.
brothers from another mother. That's exactly what we are.
They're twins.
You can tell the.
Right, very, very similar. Very similar.
What was that movie, Arnold? Twins.
Yeah, twins. What time is it? Here we go.
Oh, let's watch a movie.
All right, well, I'm trying to get the slideshow up there, but
I have a Netflix account.
what I have done is I'm talking about the needs, the new needs.
Yes.
Obviously, these final budget numbers will work themselves out over the next few weeks.
Let's connect to this.
What do you want curriculum?
Connected to it, though? Yes.
Oh, is that the problem?
Let's get
Are we, should we
This-
be looking
this
at,
thing.
or this?
Well, he's, which
All
one
right.
are you looking at this, or are you looking at your wordiness?
No, I'm not looking at the wordiness.
Thank you.
Well, what about
That was-
this? Are you looking at?
That's your bedside reading. You can either use the synopsis page, or you can follow along with the PowerPoint.
Are you connected to it?
I was.
So you are using this. That's what I want.
Ah, there we go. Ta-da.
Okay.
All right.
All righty.
Work
It's
on
actually the
concepts
same.
later.
Oh, how many steps you done on?
Yeah, it is the same, so.
I got it.
You better get that.
All right, so.
Yeah, no.
I don't know why I'm in this mode here, but anyways. Oh, here we go. All right, sorry, I'm flipping too much. All right. Haven't used this bit in a while. So these are needs, new needs that we've identified in curriculum, professional development, and technology. So basically, and Jane, you'll appreciate this because I have a math problem
All right.
here.
All right.
If you look, and I tried to change it in the slide before I got up here, but
It doesn't.
with Google Docs, it wouldn't allow me to do it with the app on my iPad. But the curriculum material is looking for a $91,000 increase, and that's a needs piece right now. And that would include basically three major additions. First, we talked about the elementary math program and continuing that on through the middle school. We would like to, or I would like to start with grade 6 next year, grade 7 the year after, grade 8 the year after that. And I estimate that, and again, we have not made any choice of a textbook, but based on last year's pricing and such, I estimate that to be about $17,000 or $18,000. And then next year would be an additional to move that program through. So, the question was, well, why not, you all just drop something in? The problem with middle school is that there's such a short amount of time to really get them ready for high school. There isn't that long view that we see moving from elementary up through, and disrupting 7th and 8th graders as they move to the high school might not be the best timing in their schooling to do that. But it is important that we do it because we do need to get the rigor up in our math program. The next one, I don't know if I mentioned it before or not, but we are actually piloting a program here at the middle school called STAR Assessment, and it works really, really well. We're very, very pleased with the results here at the middle school. I have had this program shared with our data team as well as a leadership team. They're very excited about it. But what STARS is a computer-based benchmarking test making, and there's other companies out there. There's Galileo, there's, what's the one they were using in Worcester?
Atlas Rubicon.
Yep.
Who is Star? Is it, what company is it?
Renaissance Learning.
Renaissance.
Yeah, and there are other ones out there, but basically what it does is we take children, we do a benchmark test, it tells us where they are, it gives us intervention strategies, we use those, we kind of retest and move them along, and it allows us to use, real-time data to move students forward to make sure they're going to meet the standards.
Are they being assessed on math and reading, or?
It's math and ELA.
Okay.
It's math and ELA. I don't believe they have a science one. That's one we're piloting now. It's math and ELA. You can make your own other ones, which is something we might be able to do eventually. And there's different kind of versions of this. The one we're piloting at the middle school is kind of the bare bones. But to do that for the district, K through 12, it would be about $40,000. And that's kind of a big chunk, and maybe we don't do all of it moving forward. But thinking in a forward fashion as we move towards online testing, and again, we need to have students using technology in their learning and using technology as assessment tools if we expect them to perform well when we get there starting in 2019, okay?
And this will help with common assessments,
Mhm.
correct?
This will be common
This is
assessments,
common
yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so if you were
Yes.
to bring this to the elementary level,
Yes,
you would be able to get those common assessments.
instantaneously, and they're pretty much pre-made.
Are we eliminating SRI and SMI?
This would be to replace that, yes. And it's a much, and, kind of, we're off track here, but, to give you, those scholastic tests are good, but they're not great, and I'm not convinced that we really, you get a score, you know how your kid's doing, but you don't really get that intervention piece.
And this one goes, so you get one wrong, it gets easier, and then you get to that level of where you're at. So even,
Right.
and also, if you get it right,
Right.
it can get more difficult. So you're changing the rigor based on the student's needs with
Right,
this
and
program.
then you put them in intervention groups, which can be regrouping in the classroom. There is activities that are pre-made through the program for students to do to help them move forward.
Okay,
That's what I was gonna ask. Does it just identify their weakness or actually give you
No,
strategies,
it gives you, it
things
gives you
to
a
do?
prescription,
Excellent.
if you will, on how to move them forward.
Which is rare. Usually just, you know, you got 23% on this standard.
Right.
Right.
Here, you figure it out now.
Right, this is a standard you're weak on,
Yeah.
these are the activities you should do, we
This
want
is
to
great that
retest
that's
you.
got the activity part
Right,
of it.
right.
That's rare.
And map testing is the other one, Galileo map testing, and this Renaissance learning.
okay, I got a question for Osiris. About this, though. So, let's say.
He's not even on yet, he's not
Yeah,
on until
no,
page 5.
This
All
is
right,
the,
go
this
ahead.
is the twin.
All right,
All right, and I'm jumping ahead, sorry, Steve,
Right.
but, so if we are proposing, or it's being proposed to do K through 12, and we already have the middle school, so K through 5, do we have, and it's a computer-based online testing program, do we have the capability in K through 5 to do it? Because we're only asking for Chromebooks and other stuff for 8, 9, 10. So will we have the capability of doing this in a K through 5? It's Osiris' question, not you.
The answer to that is yes, we
Okay.
will.
It's
We're
already
actually-
happening here.
I'm sorry?
It's already, they're already doing it here.
We're already doing
Yeah.
it here.
And that's, they only have 2 rooms, right?
well, they
No.
have them on the
Computer
wings
labs.
as well.
So,
They have more options here.
Yeah.
so we also have the capability of, because it is an online test
Uh-huh,
assessment, it isn't anything that is housed inside of our building,
Oh,
like a server.
uh-huh.
So we can push this out to the Chromebooks. We haven't tested that out yet because there are a couple of kinks.
Right.
We don't want to mess with any kinks.
No, we
wanna
don't
get
want
the-
any kinks.
We don't want to mess with any kinks. We want to get the assessments out, we want to get the data,
Right.
and then move forward. But the possibility is there.
It does exist in the elementary
does.
school?
Yes.
Okay,
You
thank you.
have labs, we probably would have to tweak them a little bit, but you have labs in the elementary schools. You might not do as many benchmarks as you might in the middle school, but, you know, that might be age appropriate as well. You might do it once a quarter, but it's just basically scheduling the kids to go through there. They're not long, they're about half an hour, 40 minutes to do.
They're actually timed here, right?
What's that?
They're timed.
Yeah, they're
actually
timed.
timed. So my question is, will the grades we'd be adding be utilizing in the same way, which you started to touch on, which is with the intervention pieces and moving the kids each time they take an assessment?
Yeah.
Is that going to be implemented in the lower grades? And
If we-
that's
it-
how
right.
this whole curriculum works.
That's how it works, and it's a support to learning the standards. I don't know if I want to use the C word. Okay? But it is, you know, and, you know, we have RTI time
Right.
built into our schedule.
And
This
is
would
that
be a
when it
very
would be
good
used
use
in
of that
the
time.
elementary
And
building?
you go in, you do an assessment, they have work to do, individualized, to move them forward to meeting the standards.
Okay.
Great.
Okay? All right, the next thing under curriculum materials is, you know, we did enter a contract with Pearson. It's a 3-year contract. I rounded up to 34,000. I think it's 33,554 or something along that line. But we need to make our second payment. We make 3 payments. We bought 5 years of the Envision program. And then just a little side note there, we have in the high school budget purchased many new textbooks, including AP, have in there AP statistics, because we want to keep expanding our AP program, and as well as high school anatomy text, and there's about, I think, almost every English textbook, if this, you know, makes it through the budget, will be upgraded and modernized. Professional development, we have the next installment on the Mass Insight Grant. I think if you will remember from last year, that, you know, we put in 10,000, but we get much more back. We've already seen incredible dividends in our AP enrollment, and I'm sure based on the students that we have and what we're seeing in the classrooms, we're going to have very good first-time scores coming out, and this is a major step into improving the rigor in our system. Math instruction training, that's something we're going to need to budget for, because I'm sure we will get some with a new math program in 6th grade, but we're going to need to move beyond that, and we'll probably need to reinforce and offer some more PD if we have new teachers moving into the elementary schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Literacy, Teachers for Teachers, my plan at this point is to continue what we have scheduled ourselves for the literacy training, take a little bit of a break. There is a writing component we do have to tackle, but we have a big hill to climb probably starting next year, we're anticipating, and that's the next generation science standards. So throwing the writing plus the literacy that they're still learning, plus the math, I mean, I think we probably would, there would be a large hole and everything would implode. So we're gonna put a pause on the writing piece, but continue with the second year of the kindergarten Teachers for Teachers training. And it would be the third year, and I'm off the top of my head, third year in grades 2 and 3, the third year out of the 3-year training. So next year, kindergarten will finish their third year. We'll kind of move through that literacy piece. We still need to address the writing. Between the new generation science standards coming and the development of the new MCAS, MCAS 2.0, next generation MCAS, depending who you talk to, it might be good to see what that is going to be looking like before we delve into that.
Quick
Wendy?
question.
Yes.
The literacy.
Mhm.
So the teachers have done, or certain grades have done the Teachers for Reading, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
the
so they've
literacy,
done
the
what,
level
3 years?
books, the Fontes of Pinnell, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and I know I asked you this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. So the teachers have a chance to be able to take it all in. Will they be mapping out what works for them and what doesn't work for them at this point in like a PD or something? Because I
Yes.
know with those programs, if you're doing it year, you get to that 5th grade and they've already said, we've done this already. So at least, do the teachers have that opportunity to say, okay, now we need to create our own?
Yes, we are going to be doing that. We need to identify what materials we might need to supplement.
So I was gonna
the
ask,
program.
book closets, like we did do a lot of that last year, so
Yes.
I'm just wondering where that is.
We think, Millville, there's a few types of books that we are missing at Millville, and that is in that budget, but between BPO and what we budgeted last year, they are in good stead. So they want to take a year and take a look and use them and see how they kind of get.
Okay.
I mean, they're just scratching the surface right now.
Yep.
And then next year, look at
Okay.
adding more books once they, because right now, they don't feel that they really have a good handle on what they need and what they have.
Yeah.
Millville, there is definitely, I don't know if Mr. Hahi, Dr. Hahi is still here. I can't remember which type of books you were gonna try to add in your budget for the leveled libraries.
Good answer, Paul.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
but
your
Good
honesty.
answer.
No, but wasn't it a certain type? Was it
Nonfiction?
nonfiction or was it?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Of course, nonfiction.
right,
It was the lower levels, right.
right.
Excellent.
Books with a lot of text feature.
Mhm.
Can you forward your slide?
We replicated in our budget,
Mhm.
just for what it's worth, the purpose of replication, because we can't.
Thank you.
Right.
We're not where,
Yeah.
Boston is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
You're getting there.
use the money well, that we have last
You
year.
have a good
We have a lot more to do, and I think Tammy and Claire have been really great with that in
Yeah.
helping us.
I know after doing 3 years with Tammy and Claire, actually more than that, I know there is a time as a teacher that you need to take a step back and
Right.
breathe and
Right.
say what works for me and what doesn't. And I know, and I can only speak for myself, what works for me, what worked for actually my whole team is mapping that out and saying
Right.
what worked, what didn't work. So I'm excited to hear that.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
are starting to do that this spring, which is gonna enable us to have the conversations starting next fall with how does this exactly look? What are those author study books in
Yep.
grade 1 and grade 2 and grade
Good.
3? And they're actually starting on that tomorrow.
I know, I saw that. Excellent. Yep.
So, and it does, it is a lot to digest, and you get better at, and, I don't wanna say, we're never gonna let them back in, but maybe they come back to answer questions and fill in when we have a set of questions and what we need. But right now, so 3rd through 5th grade will be done. It'll be the mapping and getting
Yep.
it down and using the leveled books and that sort of thing. K, 1, 2 will be finishing, and kindergarten will be in the second year of 3.
Great,
So,
thank you.
Curriculum design, we're working with an Understanding by Design template for curriculum mapping, so training with that, and I've allotted about 5,000 for that to hopefully bring a person or a couple people in. Google Leader training, we've got a good group of Google leaders who are offering, how to use the Google apps, how to, incorporate them into what they're doing. But the next step really is to really look at, how do you integrate the classroom, and how do we use that and make use of that to move what is done in the classroom to a higher order, higher Bloom's taxonomy sort of thinking. So I've already reached out to Crystal, hoping that maybe she'll come back, end of June, something along that line, and we can try to fit that piece in. Teaching strategies gold, that is, we kind of skipped out on that, but that is something that is required with our full-day kindergarten. They kind of gave us a pass this year because the whole kindergarten grant, but I suspect that that will be thrown back in there as a requirement, depending, so that's kind of a placeholder. Mentoring. We've worked hard. Kathy Finnegan, our mentor leader, has been exceptional. We have a very good first-year mentoring program. The problem is the state has required or is requiring a second year and suggesting a third-year mentoring program, which we have not funded for the last few years. So that $24,000 represents a continuation of our first-year mentoring program and adding a second-year mentoring program. And my idea for doing that is to hire a mentor per building to do kind of a group mentoring for second-year teachers. And then we need to eventually look at a third year moving forward. Any questions on PD? All right, technology, and this technology I'm going to talk about is like classroom integration type technology. I don't want to step on any toes over here, but obviously, and that's looking like $158,000 at this point. That's an additional request from what's there last year. The key #1 item on the list is the one-to-one Chromebook initiative. You'll look there that I've put it down as grades 8, 9, and 10 at about $103,500. You will see other Chromebook requests in building budgets to get building mobile carts moving around, but this is the one-to-one piece. And that number there, that 103,500 I'm only talking about the one-to-one 3 grades as a start. It is a pretty big number, but we need to remember that this is where, the future is going. And if we're not having students teaching and learning technology and integrating it into their classroom, it's going to be more difficult they aren't just going to walk in, take a test, and do well if that's not how we conduct it and do things.
I can tell you that in Franklin, the school committee's initiative there was 5 and 8, so I have.
But I'm just
Yep.
curious, are there any statistics about what other districts because I just feel like we're behind the 8 ball on this.
I
Like,
think so,
like
too.
everybody, any other student I talk to, this has been there for
Yes.
quite some time.
Yes.
Does that data exist?
Yes, and depending, I can tell you a horror story where they went to one-to-one, they didn't have the infrastructure in the school, and it basically.
A lot of paperwork.
Yeah, just a lot of paperwork, so looks really good, looked cool carrying it, but that was about it. But yeah, most communities have
At
made
least at
this
grade 8,
investment.
9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
This number, and I understand it's a big number, but this is a number this is something I would get strongly behind, and I'd like to do it sooner rather than later.
Right.
In terms of being able to convince the general public that it's necessary to move on to the next step.
Right.
I was gonna wait but what I'd like to see from this number is what you would, based upon what we have for already an established infrastructure, based upon what we would need to bring ourselves up to at least a comparable amount, what that number looks like. That's what I really, because I'm looking at, you got smart boards, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is technology's already outpaced smart boards. There's other more viable options like iPads and the like that are being utilized.
Smart boards are necessary.
Yeah.
I know they're,
Absolutely.
that's a
They
teaching
absolutely are.
tool versus
It's
having a
it's working-
Chromebook in front of you.
There's working tools and there's teaching tools.
Yeah.
Smart boards are teaching.
That's I'm
All
lost
right,
without.
so those are not antiquated.
No.
There's shinier new pennies that do similar things to the smart board.
Well, it's like the old smart boards were huge.
Right.
And they're still there, and the new ones just have a little piece on the ceiling now.
Now it's, and the new push now is touchscreen TVs.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean, because we're spending $27,200 on these,
Right.
And if the next push is to touchscreen TVs as a teaching tool, wouldn't we be better off looking at what's gonna serve us not today, but 5 years down the road? I know technology just moves so fast.
Yeah.
That, you know, we'll be sitting here in 3 years saying this is outdated, and we need an upgrade to
Soon,
bring us,
5
so,
minutes.
so all they have to do is just put a hat on and it just conceptually. But, you know, what I'm interested in doing is coming up with a solid, and I don't really care what this number is.
Right.
I mean, within reason.
Yep.
But I would feel really strongly about pushing what you believe to be your most ideal scenario for all your technology to bring us up to speed.
Right.
As opposed to trying to play catch-up and play Band-Aid fix and try to, you know, limp off, because then when we're talking about savings, then when we're talking about competing with BVT, with Norfolk Aggie, with some of our competitive schools in school choice, then we can look, and technology is a selling point today.
Right.
Am I wrong? And educationally
I think we're
So are
speaking?
you saying you would like a
I would like.
comparison number
I'd
to
like
the
a-
27,000 for?
Well, no, what I'd like to see in the technology number
ideal?
is an overall plan. See, he's smiling because he likes this. But I think you need to do it now, and you can't wait. Because if you're gonna sell it and make the folks of Blackstone and Millville understand why we need it, and why it actually in the long run will save us money, because there won't be so many kids going to other schools, much in the same fashion that we had certain savings from not having children go to collaborative.
Right.
I think that you can make that pitch now. So, you know, $1,000 investment in technology reaps a $5,000 savings in transportation costs where the kid's not going to Tri-County
Right.
or to some other school where you're losing your revenue.
I think we do, we've been on a track of a 3 to 5 year plan. I mean, we have the infrastructure going in this year.
Right.
We have those Chromebooks that aren't old, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are happening across all districts right now. And so every year, districts are purchasing Chromebooks. The reason I'm sure they're purchasing Chromebooks is because they're durable. They're definitely durable and they're cheap.
Expensive.
And so I don't think.
And they're controllable.
You know, and as a teacher, I could have that big machine and it worked the same way as my little one. It's not changing what you're teaching on it and with it. Whereas, you know, so I think I do see a plan happening, which is good. But I think I agree. I think this is our major focus, and I think we all said that in the beginning is we need to be where we need to be for technology, so.
And I think to John's point too, though, is we need to paint a picture of what we actually need. I mean, I keep going back to the word of what we actually need and what that would actually cost, because I will tell you, as much as everybody sitting around here at this table is like, technology, it makes a huge difference and whatever, I will never forget the college professor who stood up at the Blackstone meeting and talked about there is no need for every student to have a computer and you can learn just as well without the technology. And, I mean, you know, people didn't respond
He was a
well.
tenured professor, right?
Yeah, they didn't
He was all set.
He was all set.
He was all set with his career.
But,
Yeah.
you know, they didn't respond well to this person who spoke, but yet it was very loudly heard, and so that's why I go back to the, you know, we are the last of the people to be coming onto these Chromebooks.
That's
We
why-
are the last of the people to,
Exactly,
you know.
but Jane, that's why I think we need to start now.
Correct.
And that's why this number needs to reflect what we need.
Right.
Ideally, to bring us up to, and we're not saying, listen, we want to be brought up, we want to have technology comparable to Dover Sherborne or some of the more affluent communities. We're talking about, we just want to be brought up to comparable communities, right?
Well, I think we have that, but I think we have to be cautious, because we also don't want to get this huge
Right.
budget number and
I
have
mean,
to
if-
start
I-
cutting,
I mean-
because it always
I
ends
mean, you
up.
could easily double that number and go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But that's, you know, $207,000 plus another $11,000 for your controller for the, you know, your mobile management system. So you're talking $225,000.
On top of this?
No, I
No.
mean, including,
Another-
to bring it almost to.
100.
Double it.
Right.
I think John's point is valid, because
Yeah.
I'd rather be less conservative in this area. And
Yeah.
I've always said that.
Well, I thought I was pushing it by
No,
putting 8
no,
down there,
no.
because the middle school teachers are clamoring, when do we get them? We're ready, we want it. So, And the high school teachers are as well. I mean, the teachers want this technology.
And clearly, I just keep thinking in my head over and over again, I say this all the time, if we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards.
Right.
And we've been moving backwards for so many years
Yeah.
that we gotta, less conservative, what John is saying is true, because we gotta get up to a speed, and this is okay, but I think it's boom, and then keep going.
Right.
You can't look back, you really can't. I think
Well-
everyone in this committee believes that.
Trust me, I'm more than willing to increase
I
that
know.
number. You guys let me know what you,
Yeah,
how many grades you
My
want.
thought is,
I-
I'd like to see you increase it.
I would like to see at least one grade level in the elementary, 1-to-1. Because we have 8, 9, 10, which is
Yeah, but you don't want to have gaps, because then you got.
Yeah, then.
true, but you.
But are they
True.
going to the kids or are they going to the classroom? The one-to-one?
In fifth grade, they would go to classrooms.
Right.
Eighth, ninth, and 10th, essentially, it's per student.
They carry them back and forth.
So
and
the
they
10th
keep them
grader
to
that
it.
goes to 11th has his
Right,
Chromebook.
when they
We're never
graduate, we
funding
hand them a
those.
diploma, they hand me the Chromebook, I give it to him, he recycles it, depending on what we
Or
can
a
do with
check.
it. Right, right. So, and there's another piece, I mean, they're responsible for it.
Mhm.
We will give them the option of buying insurance,
Right.
ask them to buy a case for it, but it's like giving them a textbook.
You know,
So-
not to be, but isn't that what we do with textbooks, and isn't that what the band does with instruments? I mean, and isn't that what we do with sporting equipment and everything else? So it's no different than any other thing, a tool of part of the educational
And it's a little
experience.
different than handing some kid a $500, tablet. I mean, these are $200 and $250 a piece, so it's reasonable to be able to replace it if you drop it, or you can spend $20.
And I think
to
if
buy
you,
insurance.
send, make sure that the parents are aware that who's responsible for the cost, that'll make
Right.
them a little bit,
Right. But
make
the-
them first aware,
Right.
and secondly, they'll know to be vigilant.
Right.
You know?
I think once we get to a certain point, there is gonna be savings in textbooks, because
Right.
we need to get to a point where we're saying bye-bye to textbooks.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and no, but the textbook companies.
It's not a huge, right,
No.
they're 3 years
you
ahead
don't-
of us, I get
right,
that.
you don't save any money with textbooks, so don't even put that on the counter, don't even put that on the table,
they're already
because
ahead of it.
the publishing companies now have you buy access to the online piece.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's an advantage, you don't have kids carrying stuff around.
Right.
But you're not gonna, and it's the same price, because I just did it, it's the same price. So they've already quickly realized that they were losing money, and they
Company, they're 3
turned
years
that
ahead of
around
us.
together pretty
Cell
pretty
phone
darn quick.
They're 3 years ahead of
Exactly
us.
it.
Yeah.
Just jumping in, I know some people at home maybe tuning in, tuning out. They say, what, my middle school kids need Chromebooks? How about my elementary kids? We have carts, we have other things like that. So the elementary kids are not left with nothing.
No,
They do
but then,
have something.
right, but then again, and this, I mean, and it comes down to, just having a computer is not a panacea. It's
Right,
how it's
right.
being used and when it's
course.
being used.
Right.
And, if you're doing, and especially early elementary, where it's really a lot about literacy and numeracy, that doesn't necessarily always lend itself to a computer interface at this point in time.
Right.
So, but then you get into middle school and high school, and it really needs to be project-based, and you're changing how they're expressing and learning what they're learning, and the computer gives them a whole world of possibilities for research and expressing and showing what they know. And that's where, and I would love to meet this college professor, because that's where it changes the learning. Okay? If you're just writing papers, then no, it isn't any different. You could probably do it with a piece of chalk in a cave if you wanted to, all right? But when you're really changing how they're showing, and these kids are all about video. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you walk into our makeshift, video studio in the high school and see what they're doing and the excitement and the engagement on their faces, it changes how they're learning and how they're putting things together. So that's what the technology gives us an avenue to do, but it's only as good as it's being used in the classroom.
And then going to the next level, I've been looking at a lot of colleges with my son. They have something called smart podiums now, where the professors are operating from. So yeah, that's,
No, you
smart,
walk through,
smart
and the
boards
first
are
thing,
somewhat obsolete,
you'll
yeah.
find out, the first thing you're gonna be buying is a computer
Yeah.
for your kid going off, and it better
Yeah.
be a Mac Air, just telling you, I'll tell you right now. But, you know, and they do everything on it. That's where they pass their papers in, that's where they do the grades, that's where they type all their papers. They don't want, and they're in there taking their notes. They're also sometimes looking at Facebook or whatever else, but, you know, but that's how, that is their portal to their learning. Even though they go to class, that is still their portal. So, if we're preparing them for college, then they need to be using it. All right.
Agreed.
Enough of that. All right, mobile management software, and that's based on the, you know, the 3 grades worth of Chromebooks. Axpin X2, the curriculum mapping, that's our second payment. I believe that's gonna drop down to our yearly payment. It was $8,000 to get it all set up. This past year, it drops down to $4,500, I think, going forward. But that learning management system will hold all of our maps, all of our curriculum materials, and there also is an assessment piece that will go into that as well. So you can do, you know, midterms and finals in there. Smart boards, replacements. We are lucky to have smart boards in every classroom in this district. We are unlucky in that they were put in at basically almost the exact same time, which means they are essentially breaking down at essentially almost the same time. The other piece of this is that the projectors that were put in are no longer made, and nor are the bulbs. So you're buying, and actually buying a bulb is almost as expensive as buying a whole new projector. So in some cases, we have to replace the whole board. In some cases, we have to replace the projectors, and that's money to do that. Virtual high school, continuing with the program. It's very, very popular and gives our kids some incredible options moving forward. So any questions on technology integration? Okay, and I'm going to pass it on to my cohort who's been waiting here so patiently. I told him he couldn't get too passionate about this, these topics here, because he's very excited about his networking.
Yes.
Go, O.
Thank you. Happy New Year to all. Thank you for inviting me back to the meeting. When John was, when you were speaking, I was getting giddy and excited because there is a lot of great stuff coming down the pike. Just so you guys know, a quick update, we are almost done with just the first phase of our wiring project. Within the span of 3 weeks, the company that we hired has fully wired Millville Elementary, this school, and also the complex. We are in the process now. We're going to sit back for a little and just kind of reevaluate the high school. The high school is a different animal altogether, but that could be had, that conversation could be had at another time. So we're gonna probably, within a week's time, regroup and come up with a great game plan to finish that. Once we're done, phase 1.2 of phase 1
1.2.
is then getting all of our older switchers in the buildings and implementing our Generation 2 switches, and also our brand-new wireless access points. And once that's done, testing has been done, and the validation has been done, and I get to sign off on all of the checks and balances, all of the testing, all of the training for me and my staff, then our wireless project, our network infrastructure within every building is complete, and we have moved one step closer to where we want to go. So we're excited about that. Phase 2 of our network wiring project is something that is very exciting to me. Not only what we're doing now, but even more so, the next step is connecting all of our buildings with fiber. I am now in the process, I've gotten 2 quotes from 2 companies. I need 2 more, and then I'll sit with Alan and with David, on what is the best course of action. Connecting all of the buildings with fiber will give us a huge advantage, and I'll explain that in a minute. But keep in mind that all of that cost, 50% of that will be subsidized by E-rate, much like our Phase 1 project was. When we are able to get all of the fiber connected within the buildings and then connect the buildings with fiber, now we have a very fast, closed network that either, I spoke with Mr. Keys, Town Hall. There's no fiber in Blackstone or in Millville. And once they find out that we have a fully fledged 10 gig or more fiber network, what are the utilities companies, the fire department, and the police department and city hall gonna wanna do? They're gonna wanna jump on our network, which means that then we can negotiate with them, obviously rent. They're gonna wanna buy space. So there is some type of residual income that over time will pay for our investment. Not only will our network be very fast, but also we'll be able to have that pay for itself and then some.
But you think,
years to come.
and you think what is being planned can support that?
Absolutely. Other towns,
Okay.
other towns and districts do that.
That way.
Absolutely. Either the school district jumps on what the town already has established, or vice versa.
Now, this E-rate process,
Yes.
is it now in place a little bit better where it won't take like however many months it took
Yeah,
last time
that's,
to?
that isn't
It's
something.
pretty much,
It is, when you put your name in the application pool,
uh-huh,
it's not a matter of which district gets first. It's
Uh-huh.
when your application is in,
is
who's
it, you
next.
go, okay, okay.
Now, we're gonna put in the application for the second phase, which
Mhm.
is the fiber run, which
Right.
according to category one, which
Mhm.
they've changed the designation for,
course.
which is great for us. These are approvable items, so it isn't a luck of the draw, maybe we get approved, maybe we don't. It is gonna get approved if we put in the application, provided also that we have the budget to pay our local share, which is hence the real problem that we have to think about. Because this isn't a $10,000 expense. It's more like, depending on whether we lease, over the course of 3 years, it can run $215,000 over the course of 3 years. Or if we buy it outright, which is what would be the ideal situation, that we buy it, we own it, we control it, that's a $200,000 expense. And I'll have numbers to back that up with all of the different vendors. But anyway, I'm excited about that. Once
So
we
that's,
get,
let me just explain, so that's 200,000 that we would pay 100,000 of it.
That's correct.
Because
Okay.
50% of
50%.
it would be E-rate.
yes,
Okay.
Is the
And we would
city-
own
we would
And
own
we
it.
would
And
own
we
it.
would own it.
versus,
If we
lease it.
lease it, you can't have the city
E-rate.
or any other,
okay, and if we lease it, the E-rate's 50%?
it's still 50%.
Oh, still.
But
over
we're
3
getting
years.
more for our money by doing,
Because we can get.
because we're getting a higher E-rate rebate based on, yeah, no?
So at the end of the day, we have decisions to make, but once the communication has been fully opened up, we know what we're doing as far as what we're spending, real money, real dollars, what company we're choosing, what is what is our rate of approval? Have we gotten approved? Then we can make the decision whether we move forward because the budget will get approved, or maybe we should wait till FY18. It's all a matter of the money, the funds. Once we have the fiber connecting to all of our buildings, then we can upgrade our aging phone system to voice over IP. Then we can.
They call it ancient phone system.
Yes. Then we have a whole new world of scalability. We can add more devices on our network. We'll be able to communicate a lot sooner, a lot faster, meaning in my world, there's a replication issue happening in our district. Replication meaning one server in Millville, for example, to what's happening over at the middle school here. The time difference between 1 millisecond and 20 milliseconds for us is nothing. But for a computer to communicate and pass data packets, that's huge. So by us connecting all of our buildings with fiber, there'll be no loss of data, packets, data. There'll be no loss or data degradation. We'll be able to have, in essence, instantaneous receivership of the data, of the resources. If I may also say, if we are able to communicate at that speed, and we're able to get data at a throughput of 10 gigs or more, think about not only the type of services we could provide our students that are off-site, if we do decide to go with offering some type of a video to students that are at home and we still need to teach them. Think about the type of services we could provide those companies that purchase in, like the police department. I mean, we're opening a huge can of good stuff. So the possibilities are good. Also, we've had the implementation of the new website since October, and we've had some good reviews. We're still fine tuning it. Today we made some more fine tuning with certain calendars. It is now on the district front page, and you'll be able to access all the calendars by going to the district page. I know that there was some reference to where is everything. So
Yeah.
we're working on getting everything fine tuned. It's just a labor of love. And, we'll get there, but as I share with all of the staff members, constructive criticism is always welcomed, and it's only gonna help us get this looking better and performing the way we want it to perform.
Are the elementary, on the district calendar, are the administrators able to plug in their information into that one calendar?
Into,
Like that district calendar, like if there was something going on in Millville and somebody clicks on the district calendar, they can see something going on in Millville, or?
the district calendar is for the district, and each school has their events calendar.
Right, but nothing is like cohesive, like they're all separate calendars.
We need like one big calendar where all of these merge together.
So you want,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
these are not, hadn't seen these until,
I mean,
I'll give you my
the one
5-second
problem-
review.
the one problem with that is you won't be able to read it.
yeah. So, my
So-
personal philosophy on it, the events calendar is for what schools are doing within their particular buildings. And we can go ahead and then put that on the main webpage as far as what events are happening, but the district calendar should, unless the superintendent and the assistant superintendent decide to choose otherwise, the district calendar should be strictly what's going on as far as district events, admin, professional development, school closings, those types of scenarios.
I see merit in that. I guess what some of us are trying to say is we had some issues, and this goes way back, but of this whole kind of events calendar that you're talking about district-wide, because somebody would schedule a concert in Millville,
time.
and it's the same night as the high school concert, and if you've got kids in both, which, doesn't happen to a lot of people, but does happen on occasion, you might have a middle schooler and an elementary, and there was nothing, I know it happened a lot when Millville was doing their talent show, of
Yeah,
trying to,
yeah.
pick a time, and it was the same time as the Mr. BMR or Mr., and so there was never any place you could go to see that all together.
I think that's how we came to the district calendar. Maybe we need to call it something else, but, because right now there's
Events calendar then.
six.
Calendar
There's
of
6
everything.
Well,
calendars.
it's not like you're writing a description in each single
Right.
box, but like, let's say we're trying to plan a committee meeting.
Right.
And we need to make sure that, somebody doesn't need to be somewhere. We would
Right.
want to click on one site and be able to see, okay, this is clear for the district.
Right.
All right, let's plan it that day.
And I would hope it would just be, it wouldn't be like an added, it would just be all of these merging together. And then maybe even if you click on the event, it brings you to that other calendar. Is that asking too much?
In other words,
I just think as a
Just
parent
a
with
suggestion.
with kids in different
Yeah.
different buildings, I think to make it more parent-friendly, I think
That's-
that's definitely a need.
That's definitely the feedback I know I've heard as a parent, is just being able to
well, and,
find the sporting events versus
the MESPA or a BPA, I mean, always
Can we do with
constantly.
like Google Calendar? Can each people have their own Google Calendar and they can subscribe to different pages and they can customize it?
Yes.
That may be the way to go.
You mean every single person
Parent.
have their own, every parent?
Yeah, what you do is use, well, again, here we are talking about Google Apps.
There you
but
go.
Maybe
but you-
exporting.
But you sign into and you subscribe to a calendar, and those appear on your
The
Google
problem
calendar.
is there's 7 calendars on here.
Right.
Right, and the athletic calendar is is external, we don't own that. That's a dual county league calendar. So, I mean.
Well, the
I
one
think
it's
that's the
linked
one-
to.
We could probably
it
get
could
the
become
schools
a-
to come
a-
together, but we
Right.
would not be able to get the athletics.
That's the one that it's linked to for DVC.
But even I think that's the big feedback that we got outside the community was the calendars, so.
To explore that.
But anyway, I do like it.
Yeah,
I have
it's
used it.
very nice, very catchy.
It took me a while to catch on, but I'm catching.
Thank you. And lastly, our printer scanner fleet, it's going, we had a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning of the year. We have since, I have since backed off a little, and we are reassessing the controls that we have, and then once we get everything cleaned up in the sense of putting new devices, new servers in place that will not be housed on older servers, then we'll go ahead and turn those controls back on so that we have accurate reporting.
Can I back up a page?
Yes,
on your?
sure.
So phase 1.2, if we're looking in terms of budgets and preparing for budget and need, would you say phase 2, ideally, is an FY17 budget? Is phase 3 something you feel the need to do right away, or can that be FY18?
That could be FY18.
FY18.
Yeah, good idea. Good answer.
Yeah, yeah, because, I mean, the phone system is interesting, but we
Antiquated.
can live with it, as I've got.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really have voicemail.
Right.
This little white box
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah,
blinks
yeah.
every once in a while, and then I can't understand what it says to me, so it's good.
Well, do you even know what your phone number actually really is? You have
Alan
figured that
doesn't,
out?
I do, but I
Okay.
don't give it out because
Yeah.
you're better off leaving it with, leaving a message on my secretary's machine, because
Yeah.
I can't get voicemail.
I don't have a phone in my office. What I have is a data line that's spliced and made into a phone.
I know when you call the nurse at the complex, it goes to somebody who's no longer here.
So
I've done it.
That's kind of the reason why we would like to go to a voice over IP
Right.
system.
Right.
Only because in the event of an emergency, you're really trying to access somebody.
I guess what I think if we're asking you to beef up some of the other stuff and really hit this hard, are there things that we can say, yeah, we're hitting this hard, but this is a
Yeah.
good future?
Right. And phase 1 and phase 1.2.
That's all paid for.
Are all gonna
Right,
be done
right, done.
by
Right.
May, and we're well on our way, maybe, I don't wanna jinx anything, but be done by May.
Right.
And that is gonna increase the coverage in the building, so we could actually have one-to-one, and increase our speed within the building.
Right.
But then it's still gotta go out.
Right.
And
right.
in.
And I think that's important.
Eventually, and it's, 2 is something that has to be done eventually, preferably before 2019, because that's when the online testing is
Right.
going to be.
No, well, and I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is I think that's great to put in,
Right.
to really say, this is a, technology package that is a huge need
Right.
for all of the reasons everybody's spoken about. Let's, get those numbers in there and move it forward.
If I just, there's a scenario I want to let you guys know about. Maybe about 2 weeks ago, or the week before we went on break, I had configured 25 Chromebooks for a particular classroom. Kathy Finnegan, one of our awesome teachers here at the middle school. Actually, they're all awesome, just so you know, they're all awesome.
One of our Google leaders.
Yes.
Yes.
And within 5 minutes, she had her entire class doing an assignment within Google Classroom. And so, to your point, sir, the teachers here, they're waiting for it.
Yeah.
They really
Agreed.
are
Yeah,
hoping that we can
Right.
get them the
Yeah.
resources necessary.
Right.
So that's what you guys hired me for. Hopefully, we can
Exactly.
finish through with the vision that myself and Dr. Thompson have and make things happen around here.
And we have bought, Beepo bought Chromebooks at the complex. They're always in classrooms, they're always being used, and the Chromebooks that were purchased here at the middle school, they are in classrooms every single minute, so they are not sitting in a corner gathering any sort of dust. I think that's important to know, and this is the same with the high school. High school's had a couple carts for a few years, but those are not sitting still either, so.
There are none in Millville, but it can't support it yet? Yeah.
You can have them, and you
They
can use them
can't
to
support
hold your
them, yeah.
papers down in the corner of your desk, because you don't have the Wi-Fi capability.
Exactly.
If I could also say, and I didn't mention this, but once all the buildings are connected with fiber, right now, Millville has 30 megs throughput.
Right.
To give you an idea of what that means, when I implemented the paper cut over at Millville, which is part of the printer scanner fleet. I had everyone sending their print jobs to a print server,
Right.
a print queue, that goes out to the cloud, and then they'd be able to go print anywhere. The network, the printers, I should say, was jammed up because it couldn't handle the throughput.
I heard that.
So I had to turn off
Teacher's
that
worst nightmare.
particular set of procedures in order to allow people to print
Go
again.
print, right.
Once we connect the fiber to all the buildings, can you imagine Millville printing at 10 gigs? I mean, teachers are gonna be printing volumes, War and Peace.
Yeah, we don't have that much paper. We
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
restrict
No,
that paper.
then we need a new
toner, don't
copier.
the
then-
paper.
Yeah, new copy.
We don't have that paper budget.
But by connecting Millville,
Yeah.
connecting all of the buildings, every building will have the accessibility, the speed necessary to be in the 21st century.
Right.
And maybe we don't have the buildings per se as Franklin or the new niceties of the cafeteria, but we'll be on par with what districts in our area are doing.
That's what we need. I agree.
So just one last thing that you will see in the budget request as far as personnel is an additional person in the technology department. We are drastically understaffed there. He's a little too modest to say it, but a lot of these projects that are going on, and even, the English language learner testing, the WITA testing, he spent the first 3 days this week trying to get that to work, which is another long, long story. But because of that, all the other work has backed up. And, fixing the calendar tab, we talked about 2 weeks ago, but he has not been able to get to it because he only has 2 hands. We've tried to add another hand in over here, but it just is not, it's not working. And, and part of it is, and we don't even have devices in kids' hands. So we're gonna put devices in kids' hands, we gotta be able to support it, otherwise you're gonna have frustrated kids and frustrated teachers. So, that is, you will also see that as well.
Okay.
That number will be in there?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that we're not talking about is the resources of kids. I know school districts that have help desks that are manned by students.
Yes.
Because they know more than we do.
Right.
It's a good
And-
idea.
and
Right,
we
you
can
train
get
them,
Be
you
there
do it.
period each
But-
class.
Cost savings.
Right,
with
but
that.
here's the thing, Bill, you have to have an adult supervising.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. No, yeah, you need the person too. But
Right.
believe me, I'm talking both.
Yeah, so, so any other questions about the budget? I do want to, can I skip ahead to my,
Yes.
thanks.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was looking at my boss, but that's okay. Just
I
real
thought we
quick,
were
tomorrow is our professional development day, the second of 3. I did give you a menu of the professional development options. We have Envisions training to do some of the higher technology pieces. A lot of people working on curriculum mapping with the new Aspen Learning Management LMS software. Google training, again, we're getting some people that were not able to stay after school or get the Google training back in October, that basic level. We are also, teachers who are non-core teachers need to get 15 PDPs in English language learners and 15 PDPs in SPED. Because it's been such a problem, we actually brought in someone to offer a 15 PDP course, and they can actually get graduate credit for it as well. They will start on this Friday, but then finish on Saturday the 6th. And they have to do some hours online as well to get their total 15 hours. We're offering that. Paraprofessionals have got a workshop on how to be more successful and productive in classrooms. Custodians are getting some training on injury prevention, especially in and around the winter. And in the back, we've got a whole bunch of independent proposals scanning everything from centennial planning, working with depression and suicide. Our guidance department is looking at recognizing and doing those. Park accommodations, we're going to the park test. The accommodations for special ed are different. So a lot of the SPED teachers are coming together and looking at those accommodations. Once they figure out what they need to be and what they should be, then they need to look at ed plans and figure out who we need to do some tweaking to. Another interesting independent proposal, as part of the NEASC piece, the school-wide learning standards and the rubrics for them is a piece that, they developed the rubrics, but they really wanted to bring that to a higher level. So they're gonna go visit Joseph Case High School Swansea.
Hey, if we stay here any longer, we're gonna have to sing.
You're gonna throw us out. So using that and
Wendy?
advisory periods,
We will anyway.
we have some training in autism and sensory disorder. ESL is a second language. The
Good thing we
ESL
have the
teachers
tech
are
guy, yeah.
rewriting our manual, our handbook rather, and looking to develop some curriculum for those students. A lot of work, I only put one down here, but first grade readers workshop and using those leveled readers. And, creating
you.
curriculum support materials for our new math program. So those are just a smattering of.
And the teachers put these together themselves, they
Yeah,
proposed them.
basically, if you look on the front
Yeah,
page,
yeah. You did,
basically, we had Envision's math training, which,
Right.
they had to go to
right.
for half a day, then they had another half a day that they could choose.
Have they already signed it? You already know how many.
Who's doing
people are
what?
going to-
doing what?
Everyone who
Yeah.
teaches Envision Math is going to the Envision Math
Oh.
technology training. That was not, they
An
didn't
option.
have an option. But, they had a choice of doing curriculum mapping or Google training, or putting together their own independent proposal
Right.
that is either working on curriculum or instruction.
Gotcha.
And once again, they really have put together a lot of really great independent
that is
ideas.
good.
So kudos to the staff.
I like the last one.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. No, there's, they do, they're doing meaningful work that's going to affect their instruction in the classroom. So they had to get used to someone giving them choice, but that's okay.
Get used to it, right?
Get used to it, yeah. Give them a little bit of choice, but they are making the most of it, so.
Good.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so, what?
Can we pause?
They
Yes.
need to reload a tape, probably.
Did we use all the tape?
Alan.
Bill.
Interleave steps.
It's not motioned.
Thank you. Yes. Are we all set?
Oh, we're good, okay.
Okay, that concludes the superintendent report. So we have the superintendent evaluation, and I just want to speak shortly about that. We are in the process of purchasing SurveyMonkey, so all of you received the email copy this evening. So if we could move that to Wednesday, that would be good, so that we have time to look at it. I appreciate everybody filling it out, and we'll move that to Wednesday, if that's okay with everybody.
And will we be done Wednesday with that?
Yes, yep. School committee, public forum? School committee forum? Bill?
No, I'm just glad to be back. Appreciate all the thoughts that people had for me over the last several months, but fortunately and unfortunately for you, maybe I'm raring to go, so let's keep moving along.
And we are very glad to have you back, and I actually mean that from the heart, you've been missed. I would like to thank the AOK Club for our lovely Happy New Year, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but do you know I got my own child? Yeah, I got my daughters.
Don't know how that happened.
You better trade with me then.
Swap out.
So this was really nice to get a New Year's card. No, but thank you for the AOK Club. Mrs. Faulkner does a wonderful job with them, and they have a lot of fun doing some fun things. So I think she'll be excited, and her little best friend is sitting right here too, so right next to each other. That's it.
Just want to say welcome back to Bill, too. Glad you're back.
I'd like to say the same thing. Welcome back, Bill. And thanks. This is
Yes,
really
thank
good
you.
spot, so. And this meeting's gone on fairly long, so I'm just gonna end it there.
Steve?
Custom that
I'd
you
say,
are.
same thing, Bill. Welcome back. And also congratulations to the retirees. They definitely
yeah.
earned their retirement, and, good luck for them.
Same, welcome back, Bill. Thank you, AOK Club, and I hope the band has fun next week at the State House.
And I will say, welcome back, Bill. We definitely missed you.
Missing piece.
I would also like to send out a shout out to Mr. Cameron and the 6th grade science teachers. And I was just beyond thrilled that I was invited, that we were all invited to the live chat, because 3 out of my 4 kids were there, so it was something to experience with them. They did not come home with the excitement that I had, and but I did promise them that it was something they were going to talk about and remember forever. It's going to be something they tell their kids and their grandkids. So definitely, I think Mr. Cameron's point was made. He told them that they didn't even realize the lesson in it. And if you could bring that kind of energy and excitement into the classroom every day and you don't even feel like you're learning anything, it's, that's a lesson also. So the time and energy that the 2 teachers did put into it is beyond commendable. So I sent Mr. Cameron a personal email telling him that, and I do want to say it publicly that, the things that happen in this building, we need to feel it through the rest of our district.
They're speaking to us from space right now.
It's a
Morse
signal
code.
from.
Feeling something right
We need to feel that through this whole district, because the energy and the
Yes.
dedication that the teachers put forth in this district it's there, we just have to pull it together. And I also wanted to say something else that I can't remember.
And I echo all of the comments that were made tonight, and welcome back, Bill. And our upcoming meeting is Wednesday, January 20th. So if there's any agenda items that you'd like to see on that agenda, please send them to Erin. And we will be entering into executive session for the purpose of union negotiations. So with that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. To adjourn.
Oh,
to
sorry.
executive session.
Yeah.
Motion for executive session, to go into executive session?
And not return.
And to not return.
Second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Jane. Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Bathroom break first.
Yeah.